Because notes are very important. So hello everybody, this is 62nd meeting of AWS User Group KRK. I have a pleasure to welcome you here, welcome people from the void, right, from the internet void, people here. Szymon, do you want to say something? By the way, my name is Maciek, and I always forgetting to say that. So my name is Maciek, with me is Szymon, our co-host and co-leader of AWS User Group KRK. Would you say some words for me?
Yeah, I need a mic for that, so that will be easier. So hello everyone. Yeah, that's the last event in this year, I believe. So I'm happy that you are here and we can have a great guests and great talks today again. So yeah, we can start. I think so. Few things. There will be a. Yes, yeah, I will. Just a second. So I just wanted to say that we will have in the end some gifts. So we will show you during the event the questions. So please be aware and have a look and listen to the people what they have to say. So because then there will be some rewards, and also for the most active persons during the talks, we also have some gifts to give.
All right. So everybody, as always saying, this event happening because of the partners. So partner of this event as usual, and this became our tradition. It's Philip Morris International IT Hub. So we thank you very much for this about a year of cooperation, right? So they support us over this 2022, and hopefully we will have more to come in 2023. And today from PMI IT HUB, we've got to be Łukaszz and 𝐿ę𝐝𝐳𝐢𝐞𝐫𝐬𝐤. They will talk about standards and templates for the organization. I think it's a continuation of this deep conversation that we had very on the beginning. It's super nice presentation. You can find it on our channel. Everywhere where I'm going and we talk about service catalog, creating the best user experience for the company and how to create the standards for your company, those guys doing it right. So just go. We had it somewhere in March, I think, with this presentation about the deep. Yeah. So many people saw it. There's great feedback about it. So don't hesitate to watch the episodes that we have from the beginning. It's not just only 2 hours. No, it's just 1 hour.
Try to make it a bit short.
No, I think the 1 hour, but there was like 45 minutes of questions, right? So yeah, that was the good part. So guys, we don't taking your time. So stage is yours. When there gonna be a question on the end, you want questions, right? Not in middle of the presentation.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. So if anybody will have questions, please raise your hand, and I will bring the mic for the people from the void. Hear you, right? Okay, mic is yours.
Thank you very much. So,
all right. So maybe I will kick off this, I hope, interesting session. So in general, I hope you're gonna find this topic very interesting. I know that we started this, let's say, discussion around the standards and, let's say, infrastructure as a code long time ago. This is kind of addendum to what we have been doing so far when it comes to promoting, templates, promoting, let's say, the common practices that we want to push to our engineers. So I hope you're gonna enjoy. The topic, I believe, is pretty interesting. We're gonna have slides as well as the short demo, but everything gonna come in the agenda. So before maybe we're gonna go further, let me also introduce myself, because Maciej did already this, but let me do the official opening. So my name is 𝐿ę𝐝𝐻. I'm working for PMI for almost 9 years. I joined the company back in 2014, and since then I'm playing various roles in the IT department. I started with, let's say, SharePoint services. Then I moved also to Switzerland. I spent there quite amazing time, I have to admit, and then since 2018 I'm playing the role of the DevOps manager here at PMI. So let me hand it over the voice to Łukasz.
Thank you very much. So my name is Łukasz, and I'm engineering lead in Philip Morris. Actually, I joined the company in 2016 as a contractor first in project management office, supporting the tool set for project managers. Then in 2018, I moved directly to PMI to DevOps team, where we were establishing the tool set for entire company, trying to standardize as much as possible. And since then, actually, with some also short position in cloud migration team, I'm, let's say, around this DevOps area.
Okay. So I need to also talk about our company, because at the end we are part of it, and this is also the reason why we are here. So I want to give you a bit of better understanding what PMI is doing. So probably you have heard that we are largest tobacco company in the globe. And since our company is going through the global transformation, where IT is playing crucial role, we established also, let's say, IT department here in Krakow. And just in Krakow, we have more than 300 experts that are working in different divisions. They are supporting different technologies, starting from, let's say, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, platform engineering, as well as the others like design thinking, UX, but this is not very much connected to IT still. We are using those processes while we are designing IT services, but this is not our core. When it comes to the still some figures, more than 20 nationalities, so we are like multinational company. And what is also something that we are proud of is around diversity. More than 33% of the IT positions are being held by the women. So this is also something that we are proud of. So maybe let's move on to the agenda, because I don't want to get you bored with the information around the company. So we're gonna start with some short introduction of what we are doing when it comes to the DevOps and challenges that we have connected to the big scale, because DevOps is a nice buzzword, I would say, but then it works pretty well when you have pretty small organization, but then when you are reaching certain, let's say, size, you might have some challenges that we also spotted on our side. So that's something that we're gonna walk you through, and then we'll also talk about the engineering excellence. So this is, let's say, the domain that we established just after we also launched this deep platform, which is around the infrastructure. And engineering excellence is something that we added on top when it comes to the software engineering standards. So Łukasz will walk you through that as well. Of course, we're gonna have this demo, because we don't want to just, show to you the slides, because they are not, of course, they are bringing some added value, because at least you can get better understanding what we do, but we want to also show you a bit of, let's say, real work that we do as part of this department. And of course, Q&A there will be at the end, but in case of any further questions, feel free to simply ask. We are here to support you.
Okay, so I guess it's my turn again. Before we start talking about, let's say, engineering excellence as such, what do we do to solve some problems? Let's define them, okay? So as Piotr mentioned, actually, our company is quite a big one, right? With different departments in different locations all around the world, trying to cover all the time zones, possible scenarios of support, of development of applications. And what you can see in this slide is actually quite messy imagination of how it can look like on daily basis. Without proper standards, without some maintenance over it, I mean, you will have for sure the communication issues, some different teams managing things differently. And even when it comes to the tool set or to the methods which they are trying to deploy, they will differentiate in many ways. What it can result in is actually not an effect that will provide you some efficiency and help you to reduce the cost of entire IT department, right? So to sum up these big scale problems that we have, I need to mention first that this is not only reserved to the big companies, right? Even the small scale, small teams and medium-sized companies, they also have some problems, and they struggle to deploy the DevOps solutions to the company in a proper way. First significant issue that we see is actually around the toolset itself. So toolset independence. I can give you an example coming back in, I guess, 2017, 18. In our company, there were around 10 instances of Atlassian, right? Different configurations, different teams managing them, buying different licenses. Even this small thing, as you can imagine, because it's not very much technical, but Atlassian is something that we use on a daily basis, and also it's used by less technical people. But this was also causing some problems, starting from the cost management, license management. There were different security configurations, different authorizations. So this maintenance effort was quite big, right? After that, we luckily were able to consolidate it, and I think it's progressing even now. After that, we have change management. So maybe this is not that important for small scale companies, but actually in a big one, we are constantly under some audits. There are some checks from the internally or externally to our projects. So we need to make sure that all the changes made to the systems are managed properly, tested, and so on, right? If there are multiple processes around it, it also increases the cost. It also increases the internal cost when you are moving from project to project. You need to simply even learn how to do it, right? At the end, you finish with unmanageable. Technical part that we found here is about the infrastructure provisioning, and I don't want to say here about the multi-cloud or single cloud providers in the company. Actually, in our case, it's AWS, as you probably know, and we have its preferred cloud provider, right? So if you don't define it on a central level, you have different teams managing the infrastructure code differently. They maybe don't use infrastructure as a code at all, or maybe they use it quite heavily, but they don't share it with other teams. As a result, you simply have multiple people doing the same thing all over again, trying to, for example, deploy simple containerized solution on ECS and writing 10th module in the company with ECS, right? Which is not necessarily making too much sense. And also involving other parties, like even security team, to review the same module or similar module again and again. So this platform alignment, right? This is very important thing, and also it's covered in our company by this deep platform, which was mentioned by Maciek and Piotr before. This was a huge step forward for sure in our company to establish deep. It gave us actually the possibility to deploy the applications like Atlassian, Jenkins, but also infrastructure in a standardized way. However, it wasn't yet, prepared or bootstrapped for people to use it in more application-related cases. I think that's it when it comes to the problems. And Piotr, you will tell now about the potential solution to that, right?
Yes. So I think this, let's say, right part of the presentation is describing, I believe, not only the challenges that we have on the big organizations, because at the end, I think everybody those days is somehow struggling with the lack of technical people. So we are bringing people with different experience that are coming also with different knowledge of the tools. And this is also the reason why we have those kind of situations. So I believe this is not just related to the big corporation, but also like, you know, when you're going to have small startup and you have, I don't know, 10 engineers coming from different companies, everybody's coming with different tool set. So you are also creating, I believe, similar situation in the smaller companies. So what we have done, and I don't want to, let's say, spend too much time on it, but and at the end we started, let's say, providing services through the one single team. And here I'm talking about the team that was, let's say, trying to build standards, templates, and push them through this deep platform that you're gonna also see a bit later on when Łukasz will be showing you the templates that we have. So of course those templates, they have to be surrounded by the information around how to use them, how to apply them to your infrastructure and to your software, so that you will have also some guidance how to move further. But of course we are also like putting some information around the let's say, usage of different aspects related to the technology that maybe is not very much connected to the day-to-day activities related to the infrastructure as such, but bringing some common understanding of how to get started even with using certain tools. Maybe when we're gonna move further, because that is also something that I would like to focus on a bit. So deep is one thing, is around the infrastructure, but as I was mentioning before, we built on top of that some software engineering capabilities. And why? It's simply to avoid the waste, because at the end, more team you have involved in the process of building the software, then of course you're gonna have more people focusing on the things that can be automated. And this is also simply bringing the waste on the organization level. What else? Our team is, by building those templates, we are also like embedding the security standards. So we are working also closely with the security guys, and when they build them, when we build them, we don't, let's say, I mean, when we build those templates, I'm talking about the security standards, this is already embedded, and we don't have to, let's say, ask people that are using those standards to review that again with like external partners. Yeah. When it comes to the onboarding, this is also like bringing quite a lot of value, because, you know, by having those standards, people don't have to go to different sources and they don't have to try to understand, for example, where they can find certain information around the software standards. They simply go to one place, and they are simply also reducing the time that they need to be onboarded to the to the software standards. Yeah. So this is really something that we believe makes sense from, let's say, corporate perspective, that we are centralizing not only the infrastructure provisioning process, but also the process of provisioning the software engineering standards. Yeah. And when it comes to the roadmap, this is also somehow explaining a bit of our history. We started this year. It was just after, let's say, the deep platform was mature enough to provide the infrastructure services. So we started, let's say, feeding the products with the templates, software engineering templates. We talk about the, let's say, Terraform modules. We also talk about the CI/CD templates. So all of this is simply coming with our standards, and you're gonna see them in a couple of seconds. Of course, our North Star is to really go further and implement as much as possible and as many as possible templates to somehow allow people to really focus on the, let's say, software development activities. So we want to really move the focus on their side to the process of building the software, rather than processes related to building the infrastructure and aspects related to security and so on and so forth. So that's our, let's say, goal.
Okay, so now I can explain you what are the four main components of engineering excellence that we are introducing in PMI, and which are built on top of deep, like we said, right? So deep is ensuring that infrastructure is there, toolset is there, and there is some basic security and baseline provided, so you can continue development as a team. So first component is the knowledge base that we are building, and it's quite obvious, I would say. We have documentation around the standards and tools, and also we are publishing some recordings even of the sessions that we provide internally, like the how-tos and some guidance to the users. There are also technical articles, so sometimes as part of the chapters, we are just creating some comparison of, for example, I don't know, Terraform versus some AWS cloud formation, right? There are also technical articles describing the special features of the toolset that we have. But what we try to do is to stick to deep, not going over a standard, right? And always providing the valuable documentation. As I mentioned, there are some sessions, but also the workshops. So to give you examples, some CI/CD workshops for the new joiners in our company. They were able simply to meet the special configuration of Jenkins that they receive. We are using what we use, and what is delivered by deep is also somehow customized, right? So it's there are some presets for configuration, and they can learn about it during such session. Next to that, we have templates and standards repository as such. So repositories and also the Docker registries with our commonly used images, but also with the modules. with CI/CD templates for the Jenkins files, and very different technologies, right? So instead of writing the Node.js pipeline again and again, you can just copy it from us, get also some support, and simply comment it or suggest also some of the improvements. We also play a bit with Ansible, so configuration management. We do have also these before mentioned container images. Mostly those are the composite images used for the pipelines, for example, within which we build some particular build outcomes. And the toolset configuration presets. This is something I cannot omit here. So for example, we as a function, we recommend to use git flow, right? And git version for semantic versioning. What we do, we are simply providing these configuration presets for people so that they can reuse it. And also we ask them to use it and check later if it's in place. In the next slide, we have bootstrapping engine. And actually, this is the core functionality of our team, I would say. API-based application, which is helping us to shift this focus of development teams. So imagine application team coming in day one to the project. And instead of focusing really how to really build ECS application in PMI, how to get access to infrastructure, how to do it, they can download the template, follow a couple of steps, and deploy it to AWS offered by Deep. On top of that, we are supporting, let's say, some automation in a limited way so far, but we are working on it. Right now, it's more like a guided deployment. So you download the package, zip package of with code, or you can pull it directly from the repository and follow some steps to do it. But next year, we plan to automate it. So whenever we can create some artifact for you or create you branch automatically in some particular infra repository, we will do that. We also covered there some different components like application code samples. So for example, if you choose the template to build API in Python, we are having already some sample code. So what you download and deploy is already like hello world endpoint working in AWS on ECS with the configuration, which you can further extend, of course. And last but not least, definitely, is our community channel, right? So we use various methods to connect to our customers. As a company, we use Teams. So this Teams channel helps us to communicate internally within software engineers, but also we are sending some newsletter from time to time with updates about our templates and in general news about some building blocks. And also there is a service desk. So service desk is a feature of Jira. Maybe some of you know. It's more like for the support world. However, it helps us to gather some feedback, gather interest, and also the demand for new features. And eventually, people can ask generic question or issues, right? Okay, so I mentioned about all of these components separately, right? So CI/CD pipeline, infrastructure as a code automation, some code samples monitoring and logging features, the security practices. So if you go to any company, probably you will find it in multiple places. However, it will be always isolated. So you go, for example, to some DevOps team asking for the infra as a code practices or CI/CD pipelines. You go to the security team, and you need to take all of these building blocks and build it by yourself. What we do instead, and what we want to offer as a function, is actually to provide these templates, right? So instead of letting you browse the documentation and build everything from scratch, or maybe not that from scratch because you have some samples, but we want rather find the common use cases in the company that are there, for example, many Lambda functions, many S3 and CloudFront deployments, and we want to call it a template and build it all together from these building blocks. So instead of receiving knowledge-based link, we are receiving the red template, which is ready to use, to deploy with quite a simple deployment steps. And yeah, actually it contains already security practices. It contains already CI/CD pipeline. What you need to do so far, hopefully it will get automated, but so far you need to just follow a couple of steps to deploy it, but you make sure at the same time that your team is using it, and probably some teams in other locations are doing the same. So you are quite on the same page, right? When you discuss later on the components, the issues, if you are impacted by some issue, there's also disadvantage, right? That maybe there's some issue that will impact everybody. However, it will be also fixed by a single team. There's a single responsibility, so it goes faster. And as you can notice on the screen, there is also versioning. So we are publishing new templates, new versions of the templates, and it's simply that. About the template building process, we try to make everything as simple as possible. So this is not a different process, actually. But the most important step is the first one. Actually, we cannot just use our gut feeling to define what will be the template, right? We really go to our customers internally, to our engineers, and ask them with the service, but also with some regular calls, what is really your demand, right? And I mean, what are you going to deliver to the company in few months? Based on that, we receive quite a big list of components, I can say, and we can start developing it iteratively. What we do here, we are first researching what is already available in the company, then we define what is missing. We write the documentation, we write the modules, we combine them all together. We try to make the pipelines even more fancy to contain more steps. After that, there's a template verification and testing stage. So there is other infrastructure team that is reviewing, for example, if we meet all the expectations of the infrastructure standards that we help them to define. But only after we are 120% sure that it will work, and we are publishing the template. So this is the last step here. Okay, and the integration and automation, I think we reminded you a couple of times today about the Deep. There is a portal, and we are lucky today because we deployed some of the templates to Deep. But actually, what we decided to do is to expose the templates via this portal, because having it only in Confluence or only in Bitbucket is not that user-focused and also not that customer-friendly. So we built another tab, thanks to our colleagues from Deep, which is containing simply the templates in different versions. You can get instant access to documentation, to the repository, download the package, and follow some steps to deploy it. In the future releases, we plan to even customize it more. So to add there some forms that you fulfill some variables you want to get. For example, what containers are you going to use? What is the basic configuration? And it will be automatically fulfilled for you. Okay, and I think we can proceed to the demo. It will be a short one. However, if you have any questions so far, maybe. Okay, please.
We just need a mic.
Yeah, so for the greenfield projects, yeah, I mean, this can be adapted quite easily. But for the existing projects, there would be some cost associated with that, right? To adopt this template into your existing service or whatever application is. So, and it could be also possible that someone might have done some customization. So, I mean, are these templates, will those be extendable so that, I mean, someone can customize that?
Yes, definitely. Very good question. Thank you for that. First thing I need to say that for the greenfield products, obviously it's easy, right? I mean, it's even easy to build something from scratch using Terraform and modules which exist somewhere. Or maybe not easy, but easier, right? But about extensibility, there is for sure, because we, as mentioned, there is a service that you can offer your help or request our help to extend the module with some particular configuration. Depends what is the request. We can decide if it's a new version or maybe completely new template because you request some additional component on the infra side. which can happen obviously. And then based on our common agreement, because look, we need to really check what is the level of technological skill, let's say, of this team or person, if you are capable to write your part of the code, or maybe you already did and modified this template, so we can just publish it, right, and adjust to some standards, recheck it with security and so on. So yes, this aspect I would say is covered. When it comes to the existing products that are there, for sure the cost is there. However, I would not say it will cost more than when you are trying to build it from scratch, right? Because if you are migrating from some legacy application, you still need to think about the modernization, the cost associated, and also even some refactoring depends on an application type. So yeah, this is pretty individual thing, but we have what maybe we didn't mention, but there are different teams in PMI. Some teams writing code in-house, some of them just consuming the code that is provided by vendors, or even some out-of-the-box applications which are installed. So in that case, obviously, it's not always worth to just replace what the vendor is delivering, right? Then I agree. I hope I answered your question. Cool. Follow up, okay, go ahead.
So, so do you have any data on how much time it took for any existing product to consume this template?
Okay, based on the pilots. So to consume the Jenkins files, for example, which we are delivering as a separate component, it usually fits into 1 day to deliver the template with the customization. To deliver, to push the live infrastructure with some customization, I can tell you because I was deploying the API, but maybe I'm not the best example. So it took, in general, 2 days for all 3 environments and so on. But also there is some team, I believe they fit into 3 days deploying the S3 and CloudFront application. So pretty simple template. They just had to upload a couple of things for the initial deployment. They had to use the module and adjust the variables in Terraform. And after that, they were able to release it, as a generic solution.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Cool, thanks.
We have one more, or a few more questions.
Sure.
So, hi, thank you for the presentation. So I have a question about security. How you address supply chain attacks in this platform? How you deal with security things, which is right now a hot topic.
Can you maybe express one more time your question, because I'm not sure whether we got it.
Yeah. So I was talking about supply chain attacks. So you're delivering some infrastructure for the customers, internal customers, and how you protect your different pipelines, how you build the templates, how you build images, how you secure the whole life cycle of everything what you produce.
So we do have some tools that are also helping us to somehow manage our environment in a secured way. But of course, all the teams that are building the infrastructure or building the applications as such, they have those embedded skill set on the team. So they have like dedicated security engineers that are working with them and making sure that, those standards, they are somehow fulfilled. Yeah. We have, frankly speaking, as a company, we are somehow risk averse. So we sometimes check too many things to really deploy, let's say, product as such. So those standards are there, and sometimes even security is somehow delaying the delivery of the products because of some gaps that are being discovered. So I think many things are also being addressed on the deep level, because at the end, they are providing the, let's say, standard modules when it comes to the infrastructure. So all of this is simply delivered through the Terraform Enterprise. Oops. And for the rest, application teams, they are handling the remaining part. Yeah. So of course, as I was mentioning, we have also some tools that are ensuring the security standards are in place. So we are also scanning the code and making sure that there are no gaps whatsoever. So this is, let's say, constantly happening on the product level.
So
I think I can add to that as well. Sorry, guys. So basically, yes, in general, the responsibility for the security of the end solution is indeed on the application team, right, and infra team there. As Piotr mentioned, there is basic, let's say, the governance level and security provided by the platform. And what we do, we also try to follow the same principles as we offer to people, and we ask them to use. So we scan the images, right? I mean, I don't want to tell you all the names of the tools and so on and the details of the pipeline, but for sure we are doing the analysis of the code, the analysis of the pipelines, the Terraform code as well, which is always scanned with the checks that our security team wants us to ensure. That are there, and only after that we are able to push it, right? Whenever there is vulnerability found, the new one, we need to address it, but there is a regular flow that, like in any other application, right?
Yes, hello. So as it happens, my question is right now a follow-up question because it is also about security. I was thinking that, let's suppose you found that you got a vulnerability in your template, and what then? So do you have like any logs who is using this particular template? Do you have any, let's say, alerting or something like that to say to all of your clients that they need to update it, or do you even manage this events like that? Or
Yes, thanks. I mean, we didn't have yet such situation. I hope so, at least, or maybe there is a vulnerability I don't know about. Probably there is. But yeah, seriously, how do we manage it? You are asking about the logs and so on, if we collect such information about the clients.
I'm rather I'm rather asking if you found the vulnerability.
I mean, the entire process, right?
Yeah.
How do we?
Do you even inform like chosen clients that they maybe have to patch it?
Yes, definitely. But we need to differentiate here two things, right? First of all, the resources that are deployed on our templates. So the application code that will be customized completely out of our Hello World application, we will not patch it, as obviously it's the application team responsibility, but everything below. So on this middle layer of infrastructure that we provisioned, if there is a vulnerability, we have some ways to check who deployed it, because we are collecting data about people downloading the templates. So we can send the communication directly to these people, teams, but also globally, right? Because for the vulnerabilities like Log4j, it was rather pretty hard to not hear about it last year. And we immediately, of course, as much as possible, deploy the new version of the template without this vulnerability, and request customers to update it. So far, I know it's not possible in every case to deploy something not impacting your existing infrastructure, even though it's a single container. But I mean, Terraform is quite flexible, right? So whatever will change, it will be detected and deployed properly. So yeah, that will be our approach. And this is like a standard change process, but faster and including more communication to the particular people who used it, right? We can also add to the portal that you will actually see it in the demo. So this is how the template stub looks like. For example, this is like dev environment, and we have these two templates here, right? And some versions which actually doesn't exist, like these deprecated ones. But we have ability to add also the warnings and information to the portal that, for example, and deprecate the version. Like we deprecated it due to the security issue, and you need to patch it. And the fixed versions are, right? So even this kind of simple communication will be the solution for us.
So thanks for this answer. And second question, but this one would be probably out of your scope. What if someone takes your template and makes their vulnerability? But by accident, I mean. So do you even like scan how people use your templates, or this is a whole like just application team has to manage it?
Yes, I mean, two things to mention here. If you take the template, you can obviously do whatever you want with it. So yes, as long as you get code for it. What we do in the template repository, in the zip package that you download, there is no, we don't publish, for example, all Terraform code, but we publish the module in our private registry first, and we just refer to it, right? This doesn't stop you, obviously, to download the entire module code, upload it, and so on. But there is one checkpoint that actually our infrastructure team, the deep team, is checking some policies, Sentinel policies, 𝐋𝐞𝐤𝐣 scans, and others, right? So they want to ensure that any module deployed to their registry is scanned and tested previously. If they deploy it on their application side, let's say as a custom thing, of course, we cannot fix everything, right, in that matter. But at least maybe we will reach them with the message before, because we have some information who is using the templates.
One more thing regarding maybe those security standards. You know that AWS also like publish some kind of RACI model, yeah, who is responsible for what. So we do the same, yeah. And we want to kind of distinguish what we deliver and what our customers are delivering and who is responsible for what. So this is also somehow bringing different perspective, and this is also something that we deliver as part of the onboarding to the teams that are starting using Deep. They are getting also kind of better understanding on this by reading documents and familiarizing with what we do.
Yeah, of course. So that's also why I'm asking. But the third question came to my mind. So do you do like some integrity checks when somebody is trying to download your templates? So let's suppose there is some threat actor or maybe some bad employee, and he will try to override the template during the download. So there was this issue. There is this issue in AWS still, that you can override the template in S3 bucket during the execution CloudFormation. So basically, add some resources. So I'm thinking about scenario like that. So is there any integrity check there?
Honestly speaking, no. I mean, integrity check, I don't think it is, let's say, possible in this scenario. I mean, if you ask about the S3 buckets, I would need to deep dive into it. I mean, we are using some pre-signed URLs and everything like that. So seems to be, let's say, confirmed that whatever you download is the thing that you wanted to. But there is also the repository against which you can check the checksums which you can generate, right? So maybe this is a good idea for the future, actually, to generate some checksums, right, and ask people to just check them after the download as well. Maybe kind of obsolete solution, but let me check. Actually, thanks for the hint.
No problem. There was issue like that with Chekhov, like I think 2 or 3 years ago, that they had this bash script and their documentation didn't say anything about integrity checks. And on the April Fool's Day, I remember someone informed them that, hey guys, your bash script is volatile. Like they're trying to steal your environment. Okay, thanks for the answers.
Cool. There's another question.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. My main question is, do you have any automation or optimization for upgrading your version, template version in all team who used the previous one? I mean, I saw you have some email, but maybe another, then just please update the new version.
Yes, it would be very difficult to make it, considering the breaking changes, so all which are more than just a patch version, right? Following the semantic versioning part. We don't have yet any automation to deploy it to all of the workspaces, and also it would be even some responsibility which we are not able to take because we are not managing Terraform Enterprise, for example, as such. So it is more on the deep infra side there. However, what we try to do always for the changes in the template versioning is to keep really the structure of semantic versioning and do not implement any breaking changes in the patches or features, minors. But then what you can do, you just upversion it in Terraform and it should go smoothly. We tested that with a couple of deployments before and they were able to do it, unfortunately manually for now, yes, but maybe in the future, together with automation of the deployment itself, we can also automate the updates of the templates or just provide some script in order to check it dynamically.
Okay, thank you.
A few more questions, so let's go there first.
Security one, I guess.
Yeah, just maybe to add on top what guys already shared. If you are asking about enforcing, we are performing enforcing in some specific cases. When there is like a critical vulnerability which we think it may impact the whole infrastructure, we usually are enforcing these settings or changes related to the templates modules. We are giving some time for our customers to adjust the application infrastructure, for example, 2 weeks. And then after this date, we are enforcing the settings. Right now, we enforce, for example, web application firewall everywhere. Yeah, the users had the time to adjust the application settings for it was quite a long period, for a few months. And for those who didn't, sorry, we would like to be as much secure as possible, so we enforce. And there were a few products which stopped operating because simply the teams were not taking care for the settings. Yes.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay.
So about the enforcement, I'm really curious. So when there is did you do like some kind of exceptions?
No mic needed.
For security, I think we don't have an exception process.
Yeah, there is no exceptions in case of security. Of course, we have different environments. So if we have isolated environment related to the strictly not production means environment production, but production systems supporting factories, we can delay or postpone until the vendors will adjust. But this is like totally isolated environment with no connectivity to external network. Yes, if we have applications which are hosted in the cloud, we need to be sure they are as much secure as possible.
Thank you very much. Any questions left? All right. You again want to get a backpack, huh? Oh, yeah.
I think the last one, I hope. I'm not sure if I understand it correctly, but where are the Terraform templates here? Like there are ones which the clients can download, yeah?
Yes, what you download actually is the template that contains just example execution of the module, which is published in the Terraform registry, the private one. So we give you example, like single page for this S3 and CloudFront, right? And it contains some default variables which you can override. There are comments which are guiding you through the code, but the module itself sits in the registry.
Yeah, because where I'm going is I wanted to ask if the storage of Terraform state is on you or rather on application team.
No, it's on the application team,
okay.
And every application team, let's say, we are managing state in the cloud in S3 buckets, if I'm not mistaken. Then there is Terraform Enterprise as such with different workspaces per environment, right? So they have quite isolated environments for any deployment. They can test between the different versions and different environments. So this is quite handy, I would say, in our case.
Okay, thanks.
So I have a question as well. So it's more a process question, I would say. But so as I understood, then you publish the module, and there are two ways of working. If people want the full support after that, they can basically refer to the module. And if there is an update, they can like apply the update on the module and so on. But what happens when they need to customize the module? So is there just a way that goes via some kind of request to you? Or what happens when they actually download the code for the module, customize it, and then you publish the new one and maybe it doesn't work? Or so, yeah. So how this works.
Okay, we can both take this question, I would say, but yes, so we are working also in the community model, so encouraging people really to contribute and to build these modules with us, because even though we have like 100 people in the team, we are not able to really cover all the use cases of PMI. And for sure, some of the templates are coming to us, like teams already did their applications, even using sometimes similar resources that we have in our own modules, but we publish them separately. But here, again, we need to discuss such case individually, because you cannot, just put the generic decision to everybody. For example, in this S3 and CloudFront case, you maybe want to customize headers policy, right? I mean, in some previous version of this, it wasn't, we weren't able to do so. And we discussed with the team that was requesting it, and simply developed it by ourselves, because we said, okay, this is a simple change, and they were just requesting it. They were having no skill yet to develop it as part of application team. So it was this kind of collaboration. But we of course encourage them to also create a pull request or fork of the repository and create pull requests to it for us to review, and that will be it about the process as such. Yeah.
Okay, that answers the question. Thank you.
One more question. I just remembered about rollback policies. Do your templates support it, or
About what? Sorry.
Rollback policies. Rollout anyway.
Depends on the template, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, yes. For example, in Terraform, you can simply, we first of all, of course, support the destroy plans and so on as in Terraform. But if you comment out your module that you imported, it should get removed and not touch any different resources that are there or something. We try to isolate them as much as possible and just create this relation on the outputs and variables between the modules, right?
No,
so
this is based on the way how we developed the modules, yeah?
Yes.
Not defined as part of the process, I would say.
Yeah, probably this is the last question.
Oops.
So you mentioned that, there are different Teams channels and email communication, and also the service desk that is dedicated to this engineering excellence. So are there any SLAs that are defined for the any issues, any team that is coming up?
Are you working for PMI? I mean, no SLAs as such yet. And this is quite a fresh approach. And I mean, to be quite honest, the first deployment of this integration that you can see on the screen happened today. I mean, doesn't mean that we were working only a week on it or so. No, it was completely different, but it's quite fresh. When it comes to service desk, yes, it's part of the presentation. What I need to say is that the DEEP also has some support center, which is even available here. And we ask them to integrate, so it will be even here. In regards to SLAs, I mean, we are committing always once we take some tickets into the backlog, we commit to do it within our sprint, right? So it's 2 weeks.
Best effort.
Exactly.
This is the real SLA.
Unless
right?
there is, I mean, of course, for the security issues and everything, it will be defined more on the service level, and I think this will be also Piotr's role, I hope. But simply what we do is we are being in touch with the customer, and if the issue is too big, we reasonably want to talk and split it into a couple smaller, or maybe split the responsibility, because if they cannot write Terraform, maybe they can just update some application code or another component for us. Yeah, so it's we are trying to collaborate, as mentioned.
All right. So the last question, it's from the internet. Just too late. Today. So Carolina is asking, are your templates limited to the application environments, or do you also cover cases like environments for data analytics, IoT, machine learning, etc.?
It's coming.
Ooh. So should we allow this gentleman to ask the last question, the last question before you will start the demo? Because I cannot wait to see this. Please don't touch production. You know, it's like
no, you will not see anything.
It's just like I want it upgraded.
No, look, the demo is there on the screen, but of course, I mean, I will show just different components. So let's go ahead with one more question.
Okay, thank you. So last question, security related a little bit. Secrets. How, because I like the idea there is a lot of independence for the team who use your product. So how you in the company manage secrets, how you protect secrets, because secrets are everywhere in your platform, on top of your platform. So there is a standard and one solution.
I don't know if we can advertise here, but
yeah, you can say this name with the vault in the name.
Exactly, that's the name. So there is some nice vault from the same company which invented Terraform, I guess. So we are using it, and we are providing also as a team here the libraries for Jenkins, for example, for the secrets injection. For Kubernetes, we don't have to because there's these hooks and so on. In some cases, because it's not always natively supported by some AWS services, there is also possibility to use secret store right in the AWS directly, which is also quite good. But the standard solution and the direction is this Vault tool. Yes, the same. Let's say level as Terraform, right? So it's
I think the best solution nowadays on the market.
Cool.
Thank you.
Good. So you will upgrade that or what? You know, because please don't touch. You know, like a little bit of upgrade, a little bit of rollback. You know, a little bit of calls from service desk. We wait for that.
It's not that technical, unfortunately, today. No, I just wanted to show you what we are discussing here, guys, and actually. The templates, right? The thing that we are giving access to people as of today. This is another tab in your product details. So quite simple, your PRD10 product. Please do not touch PRD10, whatever was the author's intention. Contains some templates which are also validated against your product. So there are some prerequisites you need to meet. And first of all, in majority of cases, you need to have AWS account because there are also products without infrastructure as such, and different tools, right? I mean, if you have some Bitbucket or SonarQube or whatever, you get a list of the templates, right? So as before, it's template 1, template 2 is some ECS with ALB. This is also quite fresh template deployed today. And there are different versions, right? You can go directly from here to the repository, and I hope the link is right because, as I mentioned, this is dev edition. No, I mean it's working on the same principles. So here you get here you are redirected to the tagged version, right? You get entire README file, which is not that extensive because we prefer to keep the user-facing documentation like the deployment guidelines in Confluence. And there is a reason behind it. The reason is simply we can put more things here. That's the first reason. The second thing is there is an approval process which we have thanks to one of the plugins. And it is also collaborative, so you can simply create inline comments, you can comment the entire document, you can give us a like or subscribe our channel. And you can also see the pictures here. And the pictures are showing in a simple way, really, because we are not talking here about the robust solution. What are the components of the template, right? And the difference between the classic infra diagram is that you also see this gentleman Jenkins here and also some Bitbucket repository, and there are these arrows connecting you from one place to another. So actually you see the triggers when some particular action is triggered, what you can do to deploy it, right? And where is the your endpoint at the end. Next thing is quite needed by all of the people willing to deploy it. So we give you this big table of variables that are, let's say, that are possible to customize the template without any changes into its code. So in case of Terraform, this is quite flexible, right? And I mean, you see the default values, you see the filters here if it's required or not. So you can focus only on those which are required, and then you have a quick start. I believe that these fastest deployments are really following this way. But of course, you can change this filtering here or sort it somehow as you will and provide more complex configurations. There is also infrastructure, which is defined, defining what is being used. So again, I mentioned there is some link to the Terraform enterprise, right? And the repository itself, which is containing rather the execution and the examples that are there. Because in this case, we have, I guess, single site and multiple sites. So if you want to deploy multiple sites, there is also like a scenario for that. And the source code is actually HTML page here with some CSS and some bootstrap design here. CI/CD pipeline, so it contains actually entire Jenkins file with the explanation and instructions on how to install it in our CloudBees core Jenkins. This is the version that we use. Some monitoring information related to HTTP, mostly the response codes, right? But also the logs information, so you can find the information where your log will be. And last but not least, I hope you are not sleeping yet, there are deployment guidelines. So deployment guidelines are actually showing you this, the quick start, right? How to do it. First, copy the files from the template to your infra repository, modify a couple of variables, or you don't even have to. Because even in cases like S3 buckets name that really needs to be unique, we are parameterizing it by default in a way that it should never happen to be duplicated, unless there is really something outside of PMI deployments that is having the same name. Good luck. And the outputs, right? I mean, you can obviously add more outputs to your module definition, and you will have more information about that. Same for CI/CD. So there is some information how to, for example, create this particular type of pipeline, because there are organization folders, there are multi-branch pipelines, just the regular pipelines, and you can, depends on the template, you need a different type of it. So just going briefly through it. And expected results, right? So as I mentioned, there is a page which is deployed here. Known issues. This is also pretty handy, and I can say that for example, these warnings, which are just normal in different, depends which workspace you use, in which version of Terraform, for example, or some different versions of the tools, which are just warning you that something will get deprecated soon, right? But we want to inform customers that this is quite normal, for example, and they can expect it. Yeah, I think I showed the repository, I showed this, and there was some Terraform run. Yeah, so I mean, creating the resources, unfortunately, what I checked just before coming here, it was also removed. So somebody was asking if we are supporting all of the scenarios. So yes, and you can see here that, I mean, it's just a regular Terraform enterprise process, right? So the repository merge triggered an action here. The plan was triggered, the Sentinel policies were executed, and they passed mostly. But I mean, to the level that is required currently, because we are in alignment, of course, with the infra team and having information that what we need to update until when, as Piotr said somewhere in the audience before. And yes, and then there was successful deployment, right, around 6 hours ago, and then they removed it. But yeah, that's it. I mean, the deployment of the templates is quite simple, right? I mean, there is nothing else that you need to follow for a different infrastructure components. You can really use the template and the same process to deploy simple things like S3 bucket and CloudFront, but also some clusters of resources that names I cannot even pronounce. So yeah, there is also one more thing, if I can show. this service desk, but my internal link is we are getting integrated. So we are sharing the link with customers to this service desk, and I hope the internet connection will get us here. So you have feature requests, support requests, and feedback requests, right? And in case of support requests, you need to choose which template you struggle with. But this is optional. I mean, if you raise the generic question, we need to investigate further. So there is better. I mean, for our company, it's better to put it and be as much precise as possible. I believe that's it when it comes to the demo for today. And I said just before that I will not risk any deployment live. I know you like it, but okay. So any other questions? Yeah.
Thank you for the demo. The question I have is not related to demo. It's probably a generic question. So is disaster recovery capability that is embedded within the template, or that needs to be handled separately?
And disaster recovery scenarios, they are not yet covered in the template itself. So
any other question?
we are very optimistic that disaster will never happen.
Yeah, what if happened? Or what to say?
Yeah,
right?
Then we have to cross the fingers and wait. Yeah.
Just don't worry, we'll come back someday. So
Exactly.
my question, just like it's not related much to the technology, but generally to approach to that. So first of all, Łukasz, how it comes that from PMO office, the guy 2 years ago changed the role to lead? Yeah, you're the lead of engineering, right? 2 years? I was thinking 2016, right?
It was my fault.
It was your fault. Perfect. So you're both here, So sit on the couch, now it's going to be a cloud therapist questions. So how happened that you was taking care of, let's say, more business role related, and suddenly you changed to something like completely out of your expertise then?
Okay, it wasn't like that.
Okay, cool.
Oh
Go for it. Because it's more
change this
career
introduction
question
about me and the photo to look a bit older. Well, first thing is it was a couple of years ago, and we had pandemia in the middle. So I know that it cut 2 years basically in everybody's CV. But yeah, I mean, in PMO, I wasn't only in the business role. I was even more in the technical role because I was responsible for the tool set. Back then it was SharePoint, some SharePoint lists and libs for the project management. And also it was a moment of the task management tools discovery and Atlassian. So basically I started the Atlassian support and deployment there, and I was since beginning, I think, responsible for the infra stuff. Yeah? And also we introduced later on the tools like Bitbucket. I mean, Bitbucket was in the first batch, but also Jenkins, even Bamboo for some time. And others, AWS for Ansible. So it's not quite true that I was only in the business.
No, I'm just
side.
curious, because it sounds like this, and it was interesting.
No.
Any other questions? Just a second.
So I want to ask a question more about, I think it's more tied to culture, which is also a big thing in platform engineering. Do you find, and this is sensible, may get political, but do you find that having this self-service portal somehow also helps you, having teams being on board with you, meaning facing less resistance, or making them feel that they can be proactive? What are the typical challenges that you face? Obviously, it's not really related to the tool, more about culture, but I'm interested into having your outlook.
Yes, first, thank you. It's actually quite interesting question that we can answer. We can bring you a couple of examples here, but first resistance example I would say is that people very stick to what they delivered so far. And sometimes, they are used to do things differently than we do, which is quite natural. But I think what helps us here is to be open and to tell them that, guys, if you want to publish something via the engineering excellence and you have your template which you think works, I will not force you to, use different mock server, right? If you have your own, just come to us, follow couple of steps to deploy it, and this will be the success story, right? There is also maybe the resistance, and I think Piotr, you will agree that people sometimes think that they will do things faster. But again, the thing that is helping is that we have some kind of the power in the organization to tell them that why do you guys do it yourself and do not publish it later on, right? Because maybe it can be reused. Why others needs to reinvent the wheel? It's not about building all of the super complex technical infrastructure, but it's also about building the culture of sharing, the culture of DevOps in the organization. So I agree, and actually thanks for this question because it was quite opening.
When it comes to the resistance, I have to tell you that we have quite a lot of challenges, especially when it comes to the new people that are joining the team, and it's very much connected also to the culture that we were discussing before when it comes to the tools. People are coming from different organizations with different experience, and they usually ignore what we do, yeah? I have to admit that's the case, yeah? And, by, let's say, showcasing, we are really able to get their buy-in, yeah? So this is really helping us to kind of convince them to start using our, let's say, templates, our ways of working, yeah. But there is a resistance, yeah, and we clearly see that it's really happening on the organization level. That especially when people are coming from different companies, yeah, because they know that. I mean, they are coming with different knowledge, and they're saying, no, what we are doing doesn't make sense, yeah. We cannot force them at the end, yeah, because at the end we don't want to also have this kind of culture that we want to push people to do something, because at the end they will not perceive us well at the end, yeah. So this is also something that we have to be very gently, I would say, in the way how we promote certain standards and certain templates, yeah.
Just a follow up there. So regarding like the whole strategy initiative, right? So let's assume, for example, that you want to move off Beanstalk and promote usage of ECS services instead, right? So what you're saying is that you don't stop teams from having their infra on Beanstalk. My question, what I find interesting is what happens if there are like recurring infrastructure outages? Are teams by definition usually responsible to respond to those outages and incidents? Do you have separate SRE teams? I'm curious where you essentially draw the line between giving them autonomy, but also saying, hey guys, if we don't make like a concerted effort to move let's say into ECS, you may, I don't like to use this word, but you may be left to your own devices at the end of the day. I don't know if this makes sense, because I figure this is more like a widespread issue. It's not something like related to your organization, just something that I find to occur.
I mean,
frequently.
what we are trying to promote is, okay, what you have seen is, let's say, one way of, let's say, encouraging people to apply certain things. Naturally, they will go to us one day, because even if they have some fancy stuff built by them, ultimately the solution that they are, let's say, putting in place will be retired one day. So they will have to go somewhere, yeah, and then they will not have the possibility to use other solutions than the one that we are providing. So this is also like kind of enforcement that we are trying to do on the organization level. But we don't want to, because at the end, if everybody comes to us today and say, okay, we want to use this and that, we're gonna die, yeah, because we don't have this capacity yet to manage such kind of demand. That's also the reason why we promote this open community model. So we are also encouraging people. So imagine that you have a template, I don't know, EC2 and RDS, and you believe that this is really like super sexy. So you can do it and you can publish it on our repository. So at the end, you are becoming kind of proud that your template is, let's say, used by others, and everybody can benefit from your template. So this is also something that we promote. I mean, as I said, from organizational perspective, we don't have yet enough people to really manage everything in the way that we believe would make sense. But we also trying to get a buy-in from the management by showcasing certain elements of our, let's say, strategy to get this buy-in from them and making sure that everybody in the organization will follow our mindset. Yeah.
Thank you.
So promoting, enforcing, right? Yeah, and the balance between that. I think that's the case. You had a question, right? Okay.
So question a little bit related with this. About the culture, about the learning, you use nice tools. I think the leaders in technology, AWS, HashiCorp. So what are your thoughts on how you promote those continuous learning in organization? You use certification programs about AWS, HashiCorp. There is a lot of nice certification, HashiCorp Professional Vault or AWS Professionals certification. How it looks like in your organization?
I don't know how much I can share on this, but as part of the also contract that we have with AWS, we are entitled to, let's say, get some benefits when it comes to the discounts when we're gonna reach certain number of certified people. So this is also like culture that we are trying to promote as much as we can. We are encouraging people to also take some, let's say, exams and pass certain, let's say, certificates, so that they're gonna also give us some benefits when it comes to the cost of running the services. But you know, frankly speaking, I think we don't have to really convince people to get certificates whatsoever, because at the end it's so interesting topic that everybody would like to be certified. Yeah, of course there is like one aspect of let's say getting benefits from AWS, but on the other hand, everybody is really like looking for those certificates, and everybody is like trying to pass as much as possible, as many as possible certificates in their career. So
But always the biggest challenge is how to find time to learn for AWS Cert, because in many cases we don't use on daily basis everything what we need to learn.
that's correct. I mean,
so how you support this? Because on a daily basis it's hard to find time for certificate learnings.
For delivery.
Tough question, I have to admit, because you know we always trying to encourage people. Okay, you can do the training even during the, let's say, working hours, but you know we know the reality. Yeah, you are always like being disturbed by somebody or by some problems that are, let's say, occurring or happening on day-to-day basis. I mean, based on my experience and based on what I can see on the organization, many people are taking extra time outside the, let's say, working hours and trying to really get certified, especially that you are right. I mean, many things you simply don't use it. Yeah, especially to, for example, I don't know, we are not specialists or experts in the, for example, data lake, let's say, stuff. So for example, for me, if you're gonna ask me for about some AWS services that are supporting, let's say, big data, frankly speaking, I would not be able to answer any single word to that. So it's really hard, but yeah, I think many people, they are simply taking extra effort and trying to pass the exams after, let's say, work. Yeah, I mean, I see this like very often is happening that people are publishing the certificates over the weekends. Yeah, I mean, on the LinkedIn you see that kind of trend. Yeah, so I believe they are taking extra effort.
The normal ones.
Yeah, you don't see anyone that somebody passed like 3 p.m. or something on
3 p.m. Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly. This is like, I don't think that this is common pattern, I would say.
Question? Cool. 1 second.
Yeah, if this topic already started, so I'll continue it. Do you really think that certification is the best way of learning? Because I think that what you said, I heard it like that, but I'm not sure. Because for example, I'm thinking that usually certifications are a good way to maybe confirm that you know something, but also you can just like learn for certifications, learn like stuff, how to do really it.
I mean, I believe it really depends on the certificate. For example, personally, I can tell you that I went through the AWS Architect the learning path, and also I got the certificate. And I think it was very theoretical. I mean, the learning path and stuff like that, the preparation. But for example, if you look at AWS SysOps, I think it's touching quite a lot of, let's say, hands-on activities and really real problems that you may face on your day-to-day basis. So I'm not quite sure that certificates really prove your knowledge, but sometimes they're helping you in the career, I would say.
That's for sure,
I can
especially
comment
with
on that.
HR.
I would say that actually you can see even CVs full of certificates, but then you check it, and I mean, it's not always proving the knowledge. That I agree. I would say it's the other way around. In my case, for example, certificates help me to structure my knowledge that I have and fulfill some gaps. Because if you learn by examples, by doing, I mean, it will be always like that you are not reading every dot in the documentation to deploy something. Like, I mean, the time that you took to scroll to quick start guide is rather small. Yeah, so the certificates helps in that way, I would say.
Thank you. Okay. That certification question, cool.
No, I just want to contribute to the answer. So just to let you guys know, like the TNC team, the train certification team, does work backwards from experiences that our customer has. They work really hard at that. So although it can seem theoretical, a lot of the questions, they are kind of meant to do exactly what you said, to at the very least give you like structure to the things you need to learn, because there's so much, right? So it's really hard to do this. But, you know, SA Pro is a good example of that. They try to be as practical as possible. If you don't actually have the experience, you may crunch, you may be able to get it, but most likely you need that experience to be able to discern the right answer, right? Which is why, you know, it's kind of hard and takes a while. So yeah, I don't know. There's no right or wrong answer to this, right? But what it can give you is that kind of map, right? And the kind of structure, or at least to find the things you should be thinking about within that role. And like I said, the TNC team, they really work in an agile way. They're part of the whole 90%, you know, product comes from the community. And actually some community members contribute to questions to the TNC stuff. So yeah, there's a lot that we try to get right there. Yeah.
I don't want to complain about the AWS, but
go for it. It's a AWS User Group,
exactly.
For good and bad, right?
Exactly.
Go for it.
But you know, when you look at the professional exams, because I was tempted to also take some of them, and I was like reading this wall of text. Sometimes you start, and when you finish,
it's a storytelling.
Yeah, storytelling. But when you're going to the end, you already forget what was at the beginning. So, and you know, you have time pressure. The clock is ticking. You have to answer it. Then you have also very much confusing answer, I would say, because
I'm just coming back from Vegas, right? From Raven.
Okay.
So this is the way how we do it. Like, bet it. I bet a 2-1. You know.
I'm sharing also, let's say, my thought on this, and I'm not saying that, you know, if you really practice a lot, maybe you are able to catch just like that the correct answer. But I mean, when you really read this question, and then you have also very long answers, and there's just little tiny difference between one and another one, and you just, okay, maybe, and then you just, okay, maybe this one, maybe that one, and then, you know, at the end, okay, I did not pass.
Yeah, so I have to say about this that actually maybe this is just the case, that this is not about technical stuff only, but this is more about other stuff which can help actually in face of the customer. Customer want to have this real case scenario, and sometimes we need to find the way, and this is not only a technical way, I would say.
Yeah. Can I just say that? No, I kind of personally, when I did my SA Pro, I don't know when, a while ago, Yeah, honestly, towards the end, I was like, oh, I can't be asked anymore. I don't care. I just start kind of trying to go with it because it is quite long. But again, that's why there's the feedback. I actually provided the feedback when I did it. I said, by the end, it was just testing my attention. It was too much, so yeah, just do provide feedback because they do listen to it and they do get that into their product backlog.
But nothing has changed, I believe, since you provided this feedback, because the questions, they are still long, yeah?
Yeah, but maybe there are 2 syllables shorter, right? So, does anyone... you have a question. Perfect. Perfect, very good. Questions is good. So right now, we're moving to the tough one.
No. Now the question not for the guys, but for our friend from AWS. Oh. I can just say that this AWS security certification was the same. At the end, I was just dying here, especially in remote. But the question for you was, how long ago do you did your certifications? Because I think last year or 2 years ago, still they did not improve this topic.
There's a long sprint.
Yeah, they have long sprints, I believe, yeah, like 2 years or 3 years.
Yeah, that's why actually my question regarding your presentation, because can I just so you had there this service desk, right, that you can like make a request, like
we can sell it to you. Yes.
No, it's not about that. I just asking, like, how long is your cycle of adding the feature request to that?
It really depends case by case.
But you don't have like always define like a long-term one or short-term or very strategic one.
Not really. I mean, it's really based on also the request that we are getting from the customers. So some of them we believe it makes sense, so we prioritize that on our side. Of course, we may also get some, let's say, priorities from the management. But at the end, I'm not the fan of, let's say, putting an SLA in front of our team, because at the end they are getting stressed as well, and I don't want to have them stressed.
Yeah, get the point.
I can say that first. I mean, there is like approval process for this. I mean, as in every corporation, we just review what was proposed, and then we decide to take it, split it maybe, because it's a huge task, like deliver entire template for me. So definitely not for one sprint. Or we simply decline it, and if people ask why, because there is a button to do so. That's the answer.
Computers say no.
Obviously, yes, it is. That's why, I mean, we like it so much. No, but we are providing, the discussion to every case separately, because, as I said, it can be about stupid variable, the single one that we can add, and 5 teams will benefit from it. And I mean, it takes 1 day for us to do entire path, or it can be like add some, I don't know, extensive features to the template, yeah, or create another one next to it with these features. So it takes longer.
Thank you. Any other question here?
One about that.
Yep.
Something that was in my mind before anyway. So when you're talking about enforcing templates, and there were questions about that and stuff like that, did you say that you actually use Service Catalog? And if you use Service Catalog, you don't use it? Okay, yeah. Because we have customers, and some of them really big, like Bristol Myers, they speak publicly about this a lot, where they are completely Service Catalog driven. So teams have to use what's vended, and they are constantly evaluated. They have a whole process of adding new stuff to be vended, and they, according to them, they went from like taking days to literally half an hour that it takes to do templates and deploy. And the governance is all centralized in Control Tower, so they have the security governance there. So is this something you guys are thinking of exploring, or have you explored and not being successful? What happened there?
Well, actually, I would say we are based on the deep principles, which is providing some baseline for each AWS account that is deployed. And it's like the configuration preset, some additional, I mean, these basic layers of VPCs, subnets, and everything is pre-configured for the users based on their needs and VPC type and so on. So in fact, very many of the solutions that we build are the custom ones. so those were not yet targeted into this marketplace, right? But I don't think like we are blocked to check it in the future, right? I mean, it's also something possible to explore, but we are based on our own solutions, as we are also extending the as you noticed, we are not using, for example, AWS stack too much when it comes to CI/CD, right? We have other tool sets, so it's probably not matching what we can find in marketplace, right? So therefore, in order to provide this this layer, we need to simply use our own solution.
We are a very diverse company, so we
Inclusion.
are, yeah.
Diversity. Very good.
We, as Łukasz said, we have various tools that probably would not allow us to simply leverage the service catalog in the full-fledged that you have up there. So that was the reason why we haven't explored that yet. But maybe that's gonna come one day. Who knows?
Okay, so the last thing from the vast ocean of internet. So Carolina is saying like my technique for that kind of exam is to read question first and then the scenario and answer. So yeah, so that is work well. And studying for certs is comes with like a learning process for her, and that's the points from there. Guys, thank you very much. I think we had a storm of questions, and the presentation and demo was very nice. And make a big shout for them. Hey, thank you. when we organizing event here, I was like, I'm on the boat.
I feel like you're teasing it. Now you're gonna have to sing it.
Yeah, I can. Sorry, I just forgot the lyrics. You know, you have the lyrics, no problem there. Yeah, come on. Yeah, forgot the lyrics. We have another mic somewhere here. Oh, here we have another mic. Yeah. Ah, you need to turn it on. Should be.
Now we can do it.
Yeah, now we can have a, like a grill
the third
ourselves.
guy.
Yeah.
Don't challenge me.
No, let's go. Let's roast.
Well, you said let's go. I'll tell you what. I already love the city because I looked up karaoke's, and you have one every day. Every day. Called Let's Sing Karaoke Bar.
Yeah, exactly. And there is we are in 𝐿ę𝐝𝐲𝐬𝐻, right? Neighborhood. And in 𝐿ę𝐝𝐲𝐻, I don't know if it's in Wednesday. Well, today is Thursday. Well, no, it's Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. So today, Wednesday.
So lost in time.
And in Wednesday, sometimes they have like death metal karaoke. Can you imagine that?
Really?
Exactly. And there is always a lady, like a small, lovely lady. She's coming like, hello, my name is Monica, and I will sing a song. And she's like a super scared, and it's like, oh my god, the sound is coming from this lovely thing, it's like, nah.
Oh my god, I love that.
So death metal karaoke is the thing, right?
Okay, I don't know what I was singing there.
No, whether it's worth to go there and just listen, right?
Definitely.
Because you're going there and suddenly you hear the 𝐻𝐻 Temptation, like, oh,
yeah.
It's like, whoa.
Or you just read the lyrics and
the best
do death metal stereotype.
For example, they take Madonna, right?
Yeah.
So and after and with the Madonna songs, for example, like a virgin, and they sing like a virgin.
I love that.
It's unbelievable. It's
then we
funny.
gotta do that. Next time we're gonna make time for that. This time, I am gonna go check out this karaoke if it's still open.
Yeah, of course.
So whoever wants to come with, I am there. I'm gonna be there.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Guys, can we sit down a little bit and let's start because evening is starting to get a bit late. It's around 8. Yeah, maybe that 400 questions that we had did it.
How much time do I have? I'll adapt. Doesn't matter.
No, you can be like a Castro, like 6 hours, speech.
Oh God, it's gonna be reinvent over again.
Reinvent, you like a week, right?
Reinvent. I'm not like on Thursday. I was already knackered by the end of the week, and then we went to karaoke at the Venetian.
The Venetian, there was a karaoke.
Oh, there is. Next year, Magic, you're coming along.
Yeah, definitely.
It's beautiful, right?
I love karaoke, so we can.
And then we were there until like 5 a.m. and then 7 a.m. I had to be there to interview somebody. Back at the
professional.
And I was
it's
like,
very professional.
And then I got that. Oh no, we're interviewing you. I said, no.
What you will say about useful microservice patterns 5 o'clock in the morning? Like,
yeah,
it's very interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Super.
So microservice is great. Bye.
So you will talk today about patterns of microservices, right?
So there you go.
So I will leave you. The stage is yours, and of course, do you want questions in line, or the people wait for the end?
I think what we do then is at the end of every bit, we'll take questions about that bit because I got 3 patterns anyway that I want to talk about.
All right.
So at the end of everyone, before we go into the next bit, then maybe we take questions then, or I don't know. I mean, it's loose, right? It doesn't matter. We'll see what happens. But if you have a burning question, maybe we can take it while
shut
I talk.
it out.
But
stage is yours, man.
Oh, thank you very much. So yes, today I'm going to be talking about useful microservice patterns and get my awareness, adoption, and love for AWS in the UK and Ireland. However, nobody in the UKI, none of my communities ever invited me to speak on a boat like this. So I think I may take Wojtek. I'm going to swap with Wojtek. He can come here now. He can go to UKI and I'll stay here. So I'm going to talk about 3 patterns. I'm getting the vibe that there's a lot of DevOps people here. Is that right? Who's DevOps here? Who's developer? Who's a dev? Okay. Yeah, I'm always dev at heart. Okay. Anybody else? Testers, PMs, or anything like that? Business people? CEOs? Magic? But you're the cool type of CEO. Oh no, this is broadcast on YouTube. I love CEOs. Joking. So anyway, This is going well. So I'm going to start by talking about pipelines. Then we're going to go to migration, and we're going to go to transactions, and just have a ways around there. And we're going to start with, this is probably wrong, but I just thought I needed some Polish in there. Rurociągi? Is it? Rurociągi. Is that how you say it, though? Because I saw putonik as well. Patonik, something like this. No? Okay. Does that actually mean pipelines? But like literally or in the technical sense as well? Oh, yay! Okay, cool. Thank you, Google. Yes, AWS, thanking Google. So what happens here is that at the moment, the industry, I feel, doesn't really standardize these patterns very well, especially when it comes down to what I call pipeline patterns. So this is my contribution to the industry, because at the moment, people just talk about monorepo, and that's kind of where the conversation ends, right? Who knows about monorepo here? Who have heard monorepo? Great. So we're kind of the same page here. And I don't find that useful, helpful at all, because monorepos, they are all about, specifically about stuffing your code under one code base in the source control under one repository, which is why it's monorepo, right? But that's just one dimension of it. Really, we should look at the whole pipeline to define these patterns of how you should go about storing and building and deploying your microservices. So here's the thing. When you use microservices, if you see me online or whatever my talks, you see that I talk a lot about microservices. It's something that I love, and way before it was a hashtag, I was involved in this whole movement, let's call it. And, you know, I've always seen people focus too much, sometimes on the wrong things. And the thing with microservice is that a guiding star for you to decide if you're doing a good decision or make a bad decision is independence, right? That's what you're striving for. Microservices is all about independence. So you want to be as independent as possible. Are you going to achieve 100%? Probably not. We know trade-offs, right? We're in technology. We know how that works. But you should be striving to make them as independent as possible, which is why the whole pipeline matters. Because if anything is taking away from the independence of microservices, it's probably something that should be reconsidered. Maybe there's a reason for it, but you're going to have to justify it, right? So I define, instead of just having monorepo, what is the opposite of a monorepo, by the way? Does anybody know? What's the word, the words? Normal repo. Anybody else wants to contribute? No? Polyrepo, yes. So that's the thing. There's no standardized right thing. So I've heard polyrepo, repo per service, multi-repo, normal repo, and that goes to show that the idea is not clear. And that's not just one and two. Anyway, there are three really ways of doing this. So let's start by looking at the monopipeline, or what I call monopipeline. And it's pretty simple, right? So you got the monorepo, indeed, the repository where all your code is stuffed, all your microservices, maybe 2, maybe 10, hundreds, thousands, crazy, I know, but some customers do have that. Monobuild, so everything is built together, but then we have isolated deploy, what I call isolated deploy, where you actually deploying those microservices separately, right? Because if you're not deploying them separately, if this was also mono deploy, what do we have? A monolith, right? Mono, 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 mono. If everything's mono, you got a monolith. So really the defining factor that really differentiates a monolith from microservice is that everything else is fair game, however you want to play it. But if you are deploying them individually, isolated, independently, then you got microservices. Now, what you do with this is up to you, because you could put them in the same server, you could be copy and pasting, please don't. You know, you could be doing all kinds of things, but as long as they are different deployment units, you got microservices. But here on the monopipeline pattern, what happens is you start with a monorepo, so everything is one repository, and then everything will build together. So what's the advantage of this? Well, super simple, or at least it seems like at first anyway, right? Because you just get a code repository and you just commit code, you just start banging on it and everything works and fantastic. Minimum configuration, I'm up and running. Also, you can just do one pull and you get all the code, right? You're done. Those are all the updates. You know, you can zombie away, get some coffee, and then you can pull all the code and you're ready to go. And then of course, code reuse, super simple, right? So if the basket service needed something from the customer service there, then it can just reference that class. But now let's work backwards on the red bit. So exactly, code reuse is too easy. If we just done that, reference something in the customer service, you literally just broke the independence. You're literally starting your way towards a distributed monolith, right? Have you heard of distributed monolith? It's the anti-pattern to microservices. It's the anti-pattern to everything, to life, as far as I'm concerned. Because what happens is you end up with worst of both worlds. You end up with the complexity of a distributed architecture because you got a bunch of distributed parts, and the limitations of a monolith because everything depends on each other. So they might as well be a block, right? That is the distributed monolith. And that's what this allows you to go down towards that spiral if there is no governance, right? So that's one of the biggest problems I have with this. Then, while the one pool seems like a great idea because you get all your code changes, also not scalable. Because the more this code base grows, guess what? You'll be there forever waiting for the pool to happen, right? Especially if you've got multiple teams, hundreds of people in those teams, you're going to have lots of changes. Possibly also lots of conflicts, right? So it goes back to the early 2000s to, you know, when we're all starting to use Git, and then you get all those conflicts and you have to manage that somehow. Most importantly, all change. So if I even change a typo in the basket service, say you return some HTML or something to the UI, the whole thing will be rebuilt. And then you're going to have to pick which version of what you're deploying that didn't change. How do you do that? You tell me. This is where Excel comes into play, spreadsheets, release management processes, and whatnot, because we lost sight. You need a human to tell what is it that changed here that we're going to deploy, because surely we're not going to redeploy everything, right? You got the independent deployment, you just don't have anything else independently. So do I recommend this? No, not even for home projects. I think in 2022, this is not great, right? Better than monolith, sure. I'm quite controversial. Like, I think I'm the only person in the industry that keeps saying monoliths are not okay in 2022, even if you're starting from scratch, even if it's a small project. I say, why learn tomorrow what you're going to learn today? If you're starting a product, hopefully you think it's going to be a hit, right? You believe in yourself. So you shouldn't really be looking at something that limits your scalability. And all you're doing is kind of buying yourself some digital transformation time for later, right? So you might as well even allocate that in the budget. So I would say not great. So what's better? Of course, we start, isolating more. So we still have the monorepo in this, what I call the semi-isolated pipeline. And by the way, this is the monorepo that usually people refer to when they say monorepo. So as you can see, for me, just one piece of the puzzle. So you got the monorepo there, the repository, and then you got your isolated build. So finally, we broke free from that massive build process, which, by the way, would have taken ages, right, in the other one as well. The more the code base grows, the more your build time will take. So this already will improve that a lot. And then, of course, we still keep the isolated deployment. Otherwise, we got a monolith, right? So we get the same benefits as the previous one in terms of the monorepo, because all the code is in one repository. So you get the one pool and you get all the changes. You get the simplicity of just starting that one code base, and you get the whole code is easy to reuse thing, which is also mirroring the cons there, because you haven't got rid of those problems. It is too easy to reuse, and the pool is going to take a while, but the build now doesn't take necessarily long. Why? Because the way this is done, usually it's pretty simplistic, is via folder watching. So you just get watcher patterns there, whatever tools, daemons, whatever you want to use. And then they're watching those folders for changes and then just building the right service, right? Sounds super simple at first. Problem with this and the monorepo, and you may have heard that companies like Google, Uber, Twitter, Facebook, at some point, at least use this. If you know people that work there, or if you work there, you may know the rumors, or you may know kind of what happened to those monorepos. So not necessarily it's true that they still use it, but maybe it is. But either way, unless you are one of those companies and you have a lot of money and a lot of people to spend on maintaining this at scale, it gets pretty complex, pretty crazy. You start having DevOps teams to look after DevOps tools. So DevOps tools can be given to application teams. It's very much not self-indulgent, but meta. You start having to create your own build tools. You have to create your own performance metrics. You have to keep an eye on what's going on. You have to worry about dependency now. What happens now if we do have code reuse between those, and we have, say, a common folder with libraries? Does it trigger build for everyone or not? There's so much that you have to do here. Permissions, access, all that kind of stuff, because you don't want the basket service team accessing the customer service team, but they're on the same repo. So how does that work? So yeah, a lot of these companies, Google famously, created all these tools. They even open source something at some point called Bazel or Bazel, I'm not sure, which mirrored their build tool, but not for a long time. And it's complex, it's difficult, right? So good, works for a lot of companies, but approach with caution is what I would say. And then there is the isolated pipeline, everything isolated. So you saw this coming. So the good thing about this is that every microservice is isolated in all layers. So you got the isolation on the code repository, you got the build, and you got the deployment. That means that now you start getting best of both worlds. Your code base is always small enough that anybody can understand, can just do the one pull and you're done. Builds are going to be quick. And it's super simple to set up a pipeline for this, right? So no folder watching, git change, then you already building and deploying. Cool. So what is the con of this? Well, the cons is, one, people love to attribute complexity to microservices. And I could do a whole other talk, maybe 3, on that. But I think there are 2 factors to this. 10 years ago, sure. In this day and age, you have so many tools, even Visual Studio Code, so many plugins, so many extensions, so many things that helps you offset the complexity. So I don't think it's that big of a factor anymore, because we are already dealing with complexity, especially at scale, as we just seen in that great talk now. You got teams looking after infrastructure, teams looking after template, teams looking after security. A lot of it hasn't changed. We just learning how to collaborate better between those teams. So I think this is part of it. You got tools, you got teams, you got processes that can offset all that, and it only keeps getting better. Also, I think the complexity usually is derivative of approaching it the wrong way. There are ways with microservices that you need to approach to make sure that complexity is not there. That is why DevOps has risen so much in the last years, because DevOps is married to microservices. It just rode that wave, that microservice created the momentum, and they grew together. Because the key to reducing complexity in microservices is automation, right? If you don't have automation, if you let your DevOps behind and you start going on the microservices journey because you think it's a dev journey, this is where a lot of stuff goes wrong, because sure, it will be complex. You got loads of things to deal with, but that is why automation is there, right? And the only other con here of this one is the holistic view. Sure, it becomes really hard at scale for you to have a full picture. Again, this has improved a lot. Lots of tools and services, even AWS can help you with this. Question is, why do you want it? Again, it makes me question the philosophy of how you approach microservices if you need to look at the whole thing all the time, because the microservices are meant to be composed together to deliver application functionality. Surely together they deliver the whole application, but you shouldn't need to see them all in one big picture, unless you're gonna hire out the local cinema to display on whatever huge screen you have. I would question why you want it, but even so, there are ways of doing it. So my recommendation is, if you're getting started on a greenfield project, even if it's a home project, start with isolated pipeline, see where it takes you. Mono pipeline for me is definitely a no-no, but the semi-isolated one, to refresh your mind what the mono repo will be, sure, it's quite popular. Many tools will help you with this, and again, offset that complexity as well. So it becomes kind of a choice. My preferred one, isolated for sure. And I've done many home projects and startups, even that I owned or was just hired for, that this works pretty well with the small teams. Cool. So before we move on to the next one, I just want to show you something that you're probably by what I gather in the room based on last talk, will find this pretty straightforward and easy. But that's because it is straightforward and easy. If you do isolated pipeline, that's literally all you do. I got AWS code commit there for the Git repository. Of course, this could be GitHub, it could be Bitbucket, it could be anything. Code build, which is running your unit tests, your integration tests, whatever you want, plus doing that build. Code deploy does your CloudFormation for you and then deploys the infrastructure. Boom, done. This is all you need if you got isolated pipeline. Of course, the caveat here is that is one per microservice, right? Not one for the whole entire application. And then people go, well, what if I have hundreds of it? Well, this is where team ownership comes in. So microservice culture goes hand in hand with microservice technical decisions, right? But again, that's a whole other talk. So any questions on this before I move on to migration? Yeah.
Like GitOps. I think GitOps bringing the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's all
Certainly.
about GitOps.
And for me, that's evidence that we are moving on more towards isolated pipeline as a mainstream. Yes, GitHub does that. GitLab has many good ways, of just making this very simple for you. AWS as well, and many other third-party providers. This is becoming more mainstream because companies like that and like us are starting to make it easier for everybody to use it. Yeah.
So I don't even mention the company. I mean the GitOps, the new paradigm, the new buzzword, I think. Around
Oh, right. I thought you meant GitHub. Sorry.
Yeah, GitOps.
Yeah, GitOps. Yes, indeed. Yes. Again, yeah, part of the evolution of this thinking. However, it can also, there are lots of stuff, lots of thinking around monorepos as well. But luckily, I think the industry is starting to side with me in that I think this is becoming the thing now. Yes. Any other comments or questions on this? No? Okay. So we go to Migrazia? Why does it sound like Italian? Migrazia. Okay. So when we do Migrazia, here's just one more. Couldn't resist. This probably doesn't even mean that, but 𝐿ę𝐝𝐳𝐲𝐦𝐿, strangler fig. That's a stretch there. What is 𝐿ę𝐝𝐻? Is it strangler fig? 𝐿ę𝐝𝐻. How about that? Doesn't mean anything? That's what Google Translate gave me. Okay, so no thank you, Google. I'll take it back. So strangler fig. Who is familiar with strangler fig? Okay. Oh, cool. I thought you guys would be familiar with it. So, well, we don't actually need to go too deep into it. It's quite simple. Strangler fig is something that genius of our industry, love the guy, Mr. Martin Fowler, came up with in, forgot, 20 something. And he published this blog about the strangler fig pattern. And what he observed in, I believe, Australia, if I remember well, is in the rainforest, is this tree where I think it's a fig tree, that's why I strangler fig. And there's a vine that attaches itself to the tree and then grows and encapsulates that tree. And once it finishes growing and it's all beautiful and seeking the sun, it's all alive, it kills the tree in the middle. Pretty evil. So he kind of did a metaphor, a parallel to a migration pattern from monoliths to microservices by saying that microservices are not evil, but microservices will be the vine. And what you do is you slowly but surely encapsulate your monolith with microservices, reroute the functionality slowly, and then eventually, when the monolith has no more use, you kill it because it's useless now, right? So it's a metaphor to doing that. Who here deals with monoliths? Who likes their monoliths? I like the non-committal. With what? Okay. We can talk about that later. So yes, this is the metaphor, right? Now, I summarize all that into a very simple sentence. For me, strangler fig is all about releasable incremental refactoring, right? Incremental refactoring, I think we all get, right? You just start changing your code and improving it and whatever you need to do. Now, the key here is releasable, right? So you don't want to just be refactoring code and then go, oh, okay, I think we're ready. Let's, deploy this. Let's release this into production. No. That's why strangle fig. That's why strangling. You're strangling the monolith because slowly you are actually releasing production code that is replacing what the monolith does, right? And if that doesn't work, you go back to the monolith, work on it a little bit more, and then again, reroute. And then you're actually seeing real usage of that, real performance stats, real security stats, all that, and figuring out how you do this thing while you are already proving business value. Right. So releasable is the key word. You can refactor anything at any time, but you should be releasing it. Right. So for you to do strangle fig, for you to change from monolith to microservices, you have to go through decomposition. Who's familiar with decomposition? Do you know what I'm talking about? One. Okay. So with decomposition, for short, it means functional decomposition. Functional decomposition comes from math. It's just when you break apart your equation into multiple parts, and then you can calculate the parts and then come up with the result overall, right? So it's kind of the same thinking. So you want to get your monolith and break it up. So each little bit will then compose the full application, microservices, right? So for you to do that, there are two starting points. There is the technical team who knows a lot about the system. If it's a brownfield system, if it's a greenfield, then probably you start more from here. The business side who knows a lot about the product and what they want to achieve and what they need to do with their forecasts and analysis to pay your salary. So, you know, technical people I actually got this in a, was it a reInvent? I don't know. It was recent. Somebody said like, but why should I care what the business had to say? I said, well, you know, so you have to find the right balance between the two, because business people have no idea that you cannot pick this apart. And we are actually going to fold if there's another pandemic, please no. But let's say the business is forecast another pandemic in February, and we're going to have a 300% surge in usage. So we need to improve that bit of the system. But that what they may not know is that you cannot improve that bit of the system because it's tied up to another bit of the system, which is based on, I don't know, Oracle 6i on-prem, you know, and it's a capacity, who knows? So you need to find the right balance. So again, could go on forever about these. These are a few decomposition techniques that exist. The most modern one, very modern, still catching on momentum, is event storming. Who has heard of event storming? Anyone? Yeah, it's a very cool. I love it. It's a workshop that is not just for microservices. It's meant to be for brainstorming in general, but very suitable for you to do function decomposition for microservices. So it comes down to Post-its again, or maybe not, but you'll be in a room and you'll be thinking in terms of events, right? It may or may not lead into event-driven architecture. It doesn't have to lead to event-driven architecture. Of course, if you're doing EDA, event-driven architecture, it's very translatable, is very easy, so perfect, but you don't have to. So what it is, business people, technical people in a room go, okay, what's the first thing that happens? Well, somebody selects, let's say it's an on-demand video store. Let's say it's Disney Plus, right? All built on AWS. So it's Disney Plus. What's the first thing they do? They log in. Okay, so what happens? User has logged in. That's the event. What happens from here? User goes to homepage. User is recorded in our system, you know, as logged in. Blah, 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 blah. So you start mapping the events, which helps you discover both the business and the technical. Really cool. Domain-driven design. Who has heard of DDD or domain-driven design? Few people, right? Another genius of our industry, Mr. Eric Evans, super nice guy. He came up with this book, 2004, I think, and proposed a way for you to do decomposition. The problem he's trying to solve back then is how do people communicate effectively? That's what DDD is. Sorry for the oversimplification, but don't have much time. But it is that. It's pretty much how do the business people communicate with the technical people, and it just gives you tools, right? It doesn't give you answers. It's not prescriptive. It's methodologies and principles. It's a collection of things. And at the time, actually, Eric Evans was very focused on the IT department versus the business department, because that's how things were structured, right? I personally think DDD is a little bit outdated now, because hopefully we've all mostly moved on to agile cross-functional teams, so that people making the software are always the ones brainstorming about the software, or product managers in a team, maybe a technical product manager even, who will be super empowered because he would understand both sides. So I think the makeup's a bit different now, and DDD still applies. Great lessons, great things to take it from there. A lot of things are used from that you may not even know as devs, like value objects, entities, aggregate, all that comes from DDD. And a lot of databases and programming languages and frameworks have adopted those. So hugely influential in our industry, but I do think maybe, personally, I'll go more towards trying event storming these days. Or you can rely on Uncle Bob, if you know him, Robert C. Martin, another absolute genius of our industry, and just adopt one of his patterns, which, by the way, is all about code architecture. He was mostly focused on code, object-oriented programming and all that, but it applies so well as a simple thinking to decomposition. And that is the single responsibility pattern and common closure. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? Single responsibility pattern, yeah, common closure as well. So what it is single responsibility, it's in the name. That's how easy it is. Things should do only one thing and one thing alone, whether it's your class, whether it's your utility, whatever, whatever you have, your tools. You should try to get single responsibility onto everything, and everything else is supporting that class. In this case, we're talking about decomposing a whole business model. So it's a simple rule, but for example, if you decide you're going to have a customer service, make sure that the customer service only does customer data operations. That's it. Anything else is too much. You're going to have to split it, and you're going to have to figure out the communication between them. Something that DDD also addresses through bounded context, communication, all that kind of stuff. But I think if you just follow the simple rule, you will inevitably have to break down your monolith. There's no two ways about it. And it's hard. Single responsibility sounds easy at first, but it's actually quite hard. And then there's common closure. Common closure is the same thing as single responsibility, but by the traditional definition, which was worried about code. It's on the component level. It's about the packaging, how many things you package together in a deployment package. But applies beautifully to microservices, because what you want to do in microservices is independence. Right? So you want your microservice to have things that change together for a reason. That's what common closure is about. If things change together for the same, reason, then they should be together, right? And that's great, because in your microservices, you're not going to have just one domain model. You're going to have others, but they should be contextual to your microservice, and they should change together with that domain model. If that domain model doesn't change together, they probably should be split into different microservices. So decomposition is hard, and I want to prove to you. So exercise, how would you group these? Shout it out. Colors, good. What else? Shapes, what else? Size, what else? Position, good. Anything else? Orientation, like should these arrows be together because they're arrows? Should they split because they are two pointing to the right, one down? Or does everything matter? So if you go color and direction, that means that each one is in a different group. Each one's in a different microservice. How about texture? Is the blue rectangle the same as that rectangle? Does it matter? What matters? You don't know fully, because not one person holds that answer, unless you are your own CEO and dev and CTO, and there's nobody else. You're the startup, just you. So everybody has different perspectives and needs and requirements and visions, and the way we see things, the way we group things, will depend on our experiences and our biases even. Because I'll give you one out of the box. What if I just divide this in the middle and said, screw it, I don't care about any of this. Left group, right group, done, right? So there are many ways for you to go about it. And when you are looking at monoliths, what you have usually is all this code jumbled together, which the business has an idea what it's doing, mostly because of the UI. The business usually comes from the UI point of view, right? Oh, the basket or the clicky thing, whatever. And the technical people are looking at this and go, well, I know check stock has nothing to do with get customer details, but guess what? They are like very tied up together, and this is hard. And we need to start from there. Otherwise, we can't free up anything else, right? And that goes to scalability, maintainability, DevOps, things, infrastructure as code. There's so much that you need to free up that the business wouldn't know about. So really hard to pick a priority. Once you know the boxes, let's say we decided there is a customer service and that's where we're going to focus. We need to decide what goes in there, right? Single responsibility and all that kind of stuff I was talking about. But how do you prioritize? This is crazy, right? It's a lot. So the simple rule of thumb that you should do to prioritize is pick something easy, the easiest thing. If this is the start of your journey, right, you need to get good with microservices. Going back to the beginning about the complexity, this is also where teams go wrong. They treat the microservice migration as a monolith where everything needs to be addressed at once. No. So pick something really easy at first. So out of these three, who thinks take payment is the easiest one, the one we should start with if this is our first microservice? Raise your hands. Do you think that we should start from take payment? Oh, okay, yeah. No, I was starting with take payment. So get customer details. Who thinks we should start with that? Okay, and email receipt. Okay, I'd like to hear a few reasons. Don't know how much we're doing with time though. Just worry about time. So instead of taking the reasons, I'll jump straight into it. Take payment, it's hard. Right? Payment is hard. It's transactional. Transactional, we're about to cover that. It's like, oh, so you're going to have to be good at this. You have to be good at microservices. How do we do transactions? How do you interface with third party? Because you probably need a payment gateway, unless you are PayPal or you are WorldPay, unless you are your own financial institution. You are not taking those payments. Then you have to worry about compliance, PCI, why not, blah, 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 data. So it's hard. It's not easy. Get customer details, I believe, is the correct starting point. Note that I believe, much like decomposition, this is subjective. Imagine we're a team just here trying to figure out what we're going to do. I'm like the lead dev or something. Again, everybody will have a different perspective, you know, but my vote would be for get customer details. Why? The clue, like the main thing that you should be looking for, read only. That's the key word. Anything that is read only, it's much easier than anything else. And this is read-only. And you probably prove business value because it's probably called everywhere, right? There are probably a lot of places that need the customer details. So you're going to unlock scalability. You may unlock other benefits as well, allow other services to remove their dependencies from this. So I think there's a lot of value in get customer details. And data. We don't have time to go into data, but data decomposition is where it's at, right? And if it's read-only, you can solve that usually with basic replication and then just cut it off once your microservice is live. If there's write operations, then it becomes a bit more difficult. Still doable. Email receipt, I find it doesn't prove that much business value, and it's something that customers can live without. So if the motivation, for example, is scalability, we're not going to be proving much value there, because until I email receipts, much like take payment, it's at the end of the process, right? If I didn't scale basket, if I didn't scale even get customer details, if I didn't scale even payments, I don't even get there, right? So if scalability is a problem, I'm not going to get much value from it. However, it could be easy. It could be an easy one, depending on how the system's set up. So no right or wrong answer, but rule of thumb, read-only operations, I would say get customer details is a good starting point. Plus something the business usually understand, right? And serves analytics as well. So when you go to actually do this migration, so let's say we're going to get customer details, we're going to migrate that. How do you get started? Well, then you can use the interceptor pattern. And very easy, the interceptor, derivative of a facade, an adapter, whatever you want to call it, literally is just something that you put in your code, perhaps. We're going to look at that in a second. And then it just says, okay, if I already have this functionality, note I'm saying functionality, right? Not the whole big bang. Like Martin Fowler will say, if you go for a big bang, the only thing you're guaranteed is a big bang, nothing else. So you don't want to go a big bang. So I'm not talking about customer service can do everything about customer. Now we switch. No, if you're trying to get customer details, that read-only operation, then we have migrated that. So we're going to put that in production, and we're going to say, then you're going to take it from the microservice. If we haven't migrated that, just use the legacy code. This is how you're going to strangle it little by little. And there are two ways of doing this interceptor. You got code interceptors, you got network interceptors. Code interceptors is you typically implement it using feature flags. So literally this is the if statement in your code, right? You create a feature flag, you go in your code to go if the feature flag is on for get customer details and the microservice exists, then call the microservice. Otherwise, don't call the microservice. Call the local code, right? And then there is the network interceptor, where you don't actually do that in code. You just go, okay, if it's something calling /customer, don't call the local code, call something else, intercept at the network path. Why is this so powerful? Because you don't need to change the monolith. You don't need to touch it if it's on the network path, right? If it's in the code, every time you add a new feature flag, you have to change the monolith. Guess what? You have to deploy it. You have to deploy the whole thing, the whole big thing, even if you just put a little feature flag there. Not great. So, so code interceptors can be easy, but the real deal here, when you start strangling it very efficiently, is if you do network interception, right? And by the way, feature flags have come a long way. We got CloudWatch, evidently. I don't know if you guys heard about it. That was last year that we announced. Now it's gone GA, I think in March or something. And if you use feature flags in CloudWatch, evidently, you can actually do A/B testing and parallel runs and change it on the server level. So things are moving forward. And it's not just us. Lots of third parties as well have great feature flag products these days. So there is a way for you to kind of walk around this, but you still need to go in your code and add those feature flags and release the monolith. So you still fall under the same problem there with the code change. Whereas network, you don't need to touch the monolith. And if you're doing network interception, we got something that kind of went under the radar last year, which is refactor spaces. And that's because it's a feature, not a standalone service. It's a feature of Migration Hub, which if you do migrations, you may or may not be familiar with. And what refactor spaces helps you with is the strangler fake pattern by doing network interception for you. What it does, without going too much detail because of time, is effectively set up a pattern that we've seen with many of our customers. Customers that do this at scale, crazy scale, and even small startups. And what it is it just sets up API gateway. API gateway is your best network interceptor. And then it will set up a VPC link to a private VPC, which has a connection to Transit Gateway, and then Transit Gateway will connect to all your AWS accounts, which means that Refactor Spaces is able to help you do the strangler fake pattern by deploying microservices on multiple AWS accounts, whatever they are, right? And you can leverage that through the tool. So it makes it quite quick and easy and robust to do so. And deploying your microservices on individual AWS accounts is a good thing because of isolation, right? The more isolated, the more independent, the best. And an AWS account truly is the only true unit of isolation if you want full isolation for your workloads, right? And that includes microservices. So I'm going to do a demo. I'm conscious of time, though, but I'm going to very quickly show you this. And then we get back to it. Oh, I ended. Okay, good. No worries. So this is Refactor Spaces. And what I have done here is created an environment. So I'm not going to go back there, but I have an environment. Within an environment, I can have multiple applications. So I have this application here, adopting microservices. I can also have multiple environments, by the way. And then within this application, I have services. Now, the first thing you do is route everything to the monolith, right? So in this case, I have migrated my monolith to AWS, right? So it's sitting there beautifully on a Lambda, of course, for the demo purpose. And this is my full monolith. And that means that any / here, so I have set up my routes, any / goes to my monolith. And because of it sets up API gateway for you to do this, it will carry over anything after the /. So if I go / customer right now, it will go to my monolith, right? But as you can see, updating now, should be inactive, hopefully. Yes. So as you can see, I have set up another route, / customer, which goes to my customer service. My customer service is up here. So that goes to my microservice. And right now, it won't go there, right? It exists. I have set up in Refactor Spaces, but it's not doing anything. So here, if I go to the API gateway endpoint that Refactor Spaces gives me, you can see it goes to my monolith. If I go / customer on this, then it's going to my monolithic customer service, which is running from inside my monolith. Don't have time to show you, but it's in the Lambda, in the monolith. Right. So now what I'm going to do is activate. And then the previous demo I did, I actually hit delete. Thank God it has confirmation, but I was distracted. I didn't put yes. Anyway, feedback to the product team. So there, it's active. And hopefully this doesn't go wrong. Yay. So that's going to my customer service. Now, if this is no good, I can go, oh, no, this is not working. Microservices, we need more work on this. You can just deactivate and you're back to it. Have I touched my monolith? No, you haven't even seen the code from my monolith. That's the beauty of network path interception, which Refactor Spaces helps you with. If you want to see the, where's my Visual Studio Code? I don't know, who likes Python here? Yes, it's my favorite. I do many of them, I know, but Python is my favorite. You don't need to know Python because I put like big English comments here. So, for example, right, in my homepage, all this is doing going / go to my homepage, right? It's my monolith. And then it's doing a bunch of things. It's logging in, it's blah, 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 right? What monoliths do. Then when we get to get customer name, it's going to my fake database model. So what I'm doing here is creating connection pools to the database, sending SQL queries, all that kind of ugly stuff, inline, hard-coded. And then it does the same thing for get available games. So this is after the refactoring. And what I'm doing now is for get customer name, I have modularized it. I have put it under a get customer details call here, but I'm not calling on the network path, right? So what happens is if I need to make any changes to this, if I want to intercept it, I have to come in the code and change it myself. But for the get latest games, as you can see here, somewhere here, is this the refactor one or the non-refactor one? This is the non-refactor one. But what I should be doing here is, oh wait, I have a backup. Get out for monolith. There it is. So on the get available games, what happens is I am now requesting the path to / catalog. Now this at the moment within my monolith resolves to, well, would resolve if I have refactor to a path here. So you can run the same legacy code, pretend that this is catalog. You can run the same legacy code here within the monolith just by calling the network path. What's going to happen is that the monolith is going to go outside and back in. But that's good because you're starting to test performance. Is it okay now to do a full network path outside? Because when you start using microservices, it's going to make a call outside, right? And then you can just intercept the path once your microservices is done. So that is the beauty of a network interception and migration refactor spaces. Now, just last on this, if you are using .NET, anybody here uses .NET? No? Okay, so I'll move along. But if you're using .NET, do check this out or recommend about it. This is super cool, not because AWS. I always say I only authentically represent. I love our tech is freaking incredible, and this is so cool. So it will scan the whole of your .NET code base. It will give you graph visualizations. Remember when I said holistic view is hard and stuff? Well, not for this. So it gives you not only static view, but runtime view of what's going to happen. And then remember the isolated pipeline that I mentioned? Remember all those patterns? It does everything for you. It actually extracts things into project codes. It puts an API layer call so you can network intercept and do strangular fig. It does all that for you. You just need to strangle fig it. So pretty cool. Hopefully there will be support for others in the future. Right. So last, how much time do I have?
I didn't count.
Okay, don't worry, not long, because I know we all want to go out to karaoke, right? That's what we're doing, right? Transakcje.
Transakcje.
Transakcje. Transakcji?
Transakcje.
Transakcje. There you go.
Yeah, cool.
So, who is very familiar with transactions here? Or transakcje? Yeah, very comfortable? Okay. Cool. So you should know ACID if you're comfortable with transactions. This has been the staple of our technology industry for decades now, forever, for a good reason, because, you know, transactions are really, really hard, harder than decomposition. And, you know, ACID is a way to kind of keep let's say, quality to your transactions. Make sure that you got the guiding star, like I mentioned, microservices is independence, with transactions is asset. You want to try to achieve all of this or as much as this as possible. And databases will help you with this. The first fallacy is that people think ACID is synonym with SQL databases. It's not. NoSQL databases do them as well. You know, Amazon DynamoDB does it, and many other ones as well. So that's not true. You can do ACID with NoSQL databases as well. The other thing that is available to you as a pattern, very common, is distributed transactions with two-phase commit. So this kind of started coming up late 90s. Not that I would know anything about that. You know, early 2000s. And it's not ideal. You would think it's ideal based on the name, right? Distributed transactions, microservices, distributed architecture. Surely that's the thing, right? And back then it was SOA anyway, which microservices just evolved from anyway. But as we're going to see, not ideal. And then there is fragmented transactions or sagas. Has anybody heard of sagas? Yeah, cool. I love how dramatic they're named, sagas. So, and to give you spoilers, that is what you should be looking at if you're doing microservices. So very quickly, local transactions, the traditional thing is that you have everything in one database. So it becomes so much easier, right? It's the same hardware. It knows where stuff is in memory. It can do things lightning fast. It doesn't care. And the heart of a transaction is that everything should work together or fail together, right? So if anything fails here, then the whole thing should roll back and it's as if it never existed. Nobody saw it. No one cares, right? So what it starts by looking, the database will serve as a coordinator and it will look into those actions they want to do within the transactions. And then it's going to check the tables and go, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. Then it's going to make sure that those columns and rows, so that specific field there, is ready for the change. And then it's going to get to the commit transaction and go, boom, change, both of them. Again, if something went wrong with the orders table during this time, that wouldn't change. They will fail together. They will go back to the results and you wouldn't even see it. You wouldn't even know it, right? Okay. Distributed transactions. What's the problem? Well, the problem is that now we have a split, right? We now introduce network boundary. Whenever you introduce network boundary, then, you know, watch out, because now many things can go wrong, right? This could be down, this could be slow, there could be latency, there could be who knows what. So this is the problem. Now we have the same transaction, but they live in separate databases across different network paths. So what's going to happen is, again, the coordinator, so now you need an external coordinator because the same database won't do, it doesn't know where stuff is. We'll look into each one of these databases. We'll make a call in the network path and go, hey, are you available? Okay, cool. Can I make this change? And both databases are going to have to respond to this. But then they don't just respond to it. They have to keep their promise, because once they respond, they go, yes, you can make that change. You don't know when that's going to happen. That could be at any time. That could be in the next seconds. That could be in the next hour, on the next months. So what are they going to do? Lock those fields. And that is where the problem starts. So, okay, the coordinator is going to go, great. So you're going to fulfill the promise, keep them locked. Let's do this. So I'm going to go to the commit transaction bit. There should only be one. I don't know what happened there. And then it's going to go, okay, great. You're ready. How about you? And it's going to go, oops, downtime. And it's been 2 hours, because that's the only icon I could find. So now we're waiting. We're waiting. And what's happening? That's locked. So, and that's the orders table. So if any other customers are coming in here, we're running out of stock anyway. Now the UI is potentially blocked, right? People are experiencing slowdown, downtimes, who knows what else is tied up to this table, to that field, right? And imagine that this is a much bigger query as well, you know, much better, bigger update statement. Then, you know, you're going to have a lot more fields and tables, so you're locked. So once it reaches the end of the 2 hours and you've become the next Twitter hashtag or Mastodon, let's not go there, then it's finally ready to go. And then it's gonna look at those fields and go, fine, I'm gonna change this. And then finally those locks are removed and everything is beautiful, except that you spend all the time hoping and praying and wishing that things will work. That is what distributed transactions amount to, a lot of that, right? So you don't want that. So what do you want? Sagas. So Saga is a sequence of local transactions. That's kind of like the formal definition that, finally, that's not my definition, that's the bookworm definition. I don't like that because initially it sounds like, again, we got one database with a bunch of local transactions. No, we got multiple, but we got multiple local transactions, right? And what sagas do is magically remove this problem with the locks. Let's see if my animation works. Come on, Darth. My animation didn't work. Whatever. It was meant to go away and float. Whatever. So what happens with sagas is that effectively we are tapping into an old pattern. And a lot of the stuff, by the way, comes from very old patterns. People think we're all modern, you know, these days, microservices and all that. A lot of that is based on theory from structured programming from, if I'm not mistaken, 1978. It's crazy, right? How ahead of the times they were. Of course, those people were thinking about code, but everything translates as our technology industry has become more distributed. And long-lived transaction is one of those. I think it's from the 70s as well, this pattern. They were more worried about transactions that will take a year. How do we handle this, right? But of course, works really well when you put things across network boundaries and you don't know what's going to happen, eventual consistency and all that. So it's all very much linked to the LLT concept. And what LLT tries to do is remove the lock as much as possible, because that is the problem. This is the point of contention. And what it does is pretty much you have a transaction and you break it apart. So we're going to have mini transactions. That's not the term, sub transactions, but I like mini transactions, that each one of them will have multiple actions in them. But the difference is, and this is why sagas are hard, it's not like local transactions where nothing happened if you need to roll back. It's invisible, right? In this case, things happened. So there is no way for transaction 2 to block things happening in transaction 1, right? They are separate transactions. So if transaction 1 works, but transaction 2 fails, now what we need to do is compensate, not roll back. There is no rollback. So we need to figure out what the compensating action is for the actions we took. On the classic example, a customer paid for something. What are you going to do? What's the compensating action for payment? Thank you. Refund. So that's what you do. We're not going to roll back the payment. We're just going to refund the customer, right? So how does it work? Well, pretty much if you got a transaction that is great and beautiful and dandy and happy, that's pretty much how it goes. You're going to have transaction 1, change set, what I call change set because a bunch of changes. 2, 3, 4, green, 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 fantastic. Where at the end, everything worked. But let's say we run into that same problem again, kind of like we did with distributed transactions. We get to that one, and that one is, don't like it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to ignore transaction 4. That transaction is not going to be valid anyway. We don't want to do more damage. Having said that, it's just that I don't have time to talk about that. You could do actually a forward strategy if you don't care about things. That's a different talk. So there is backwards and there's forward, right? And this is backwards. So we're going to not care about anything coming after. We're going to ignore it. And we're just going to undo the damage we've done so far. So change set 3 is not going to go ahead. So we need to undo change set 2, change set 1. So what you're going to end up with is those two don't matter. Those two have compensating actions. If this is payment, this is refund. If that was emailing customer saying, oh, we hope you're so happy with your order. I'm sure you loved everything about us. You can send an email saying, oh, I'm so sorry, we screwed up, right? So, and this is part of your design, something you got to do. That's why transactions are hard, right? Because it takes an extra level of thinking and extra level of implementation. How can you do this in AWS? Of course, I'm going to talk about AWS. Is you can do in 2 ways. You can do orchestrated or you can do choreographed. Choreographed, use Amazon Event Bridge. Now you can use events for that. Not going to go into that because there's no time. Promise. This is the pre-last slide. So I just want to show you a little flavor how you could do this using step functions. Do you guys know about step functions? Yeah? Yeah. So So pretty much what you do here is have a request come through, say Lambda, and just proxying all this, and then starting the step functions workflow. And let's pretend we are reserving a flight, right? This is EasyJet, just flown with them here, love them. Then we start by reserving the flight. And you can see, this is the beauty also of step functions, because when you do things workflow-wise, it's so easy to figure it out. If everything's okay, we reserve a car rental. If the car rental goes wrong, we cancel the rental reservation, and then go through the funnel. Cancel the flight reservation, send a failure to the customer saying sorry, and then make sure that the reservation is recorded as failed, and so on and so forth. So let's say we get all the way down to confirm flight. Well, we're going to have to roll back a few other things. So for every action, there is a compensating action, right? We're not undoing the confirmation of the flight. You can't do that. You need to somehow figure out how to cancel that, right? And how does that affect your booking systems? How does that affect the price, the fees, everything else, right? So this is the way it works. And in fact, this is a little snapshot of one of our customers that do just that. This is the way you can do it, very simple. So it looks very simple, and it is very simple when you implement it, potentially, depending on your business logic, of course. But it just takes a lot of thinking, right? So key takeaways. For source controls, mono pipelines are very popular. It's the monorepo thing. At least in thinking, in practice, I'm not sure they're so popular, especially when you talk to customers that do it. But they can get complex. And my personal recommendation is do isolated pipelines for everything. Strangler fig pattern for the full name. Then find a decomposition strategy that works for you. Sometimes it can be fully dev-led. Like, the business may fully trust the technical teams, especially companies that are DNB, digital native businesses, and they're very much technology companies, and they understand that. Companies that use technology instead of creating technology or using technology, they're, they struggle. So maybe DDD could be a better match for that. You can use refactor spaces to implement your Strangler fig very effectively, to do the repetition phase. When you're getting good at it, now you just need to kind of really streamline it. And then if you're on .NET, you can use, I can't say that. I keep saying Microsoft every time I say this. I say like AWS Micro .NET. I don't know. It's AWS Microservices Extractor for .NET. I wish they changed the name. And then transactions, use sagas if you must, right? Because sagas are awesome. I love them. They're cool. A lot of people use it, very mainstream for transactions in microservices, but try to avoid them is actually the golden rule, not try to use them. And lastly, you can use step functions to implement them.
Micro.net.
And I have my last Polish word.
Yeah, I'm really curious.
I learned this just from Google Translate. So that the little snake underneath means there's an N sound, doesn't it? So it'd be 𝐶𝐞𝐤𝐚𝐻.
Good. Thank you very much.
Ha!
Any questions, though? Okay, there is a question. There's a question. One moment.
Yes, so as usually, security question. I suppose you didn't talk about it because of the time limitations, but what would you suggest during the decomposition stage to do about the security concerns? Because from my experience, there's a lot of problems when connecting different services together. Because usually different technologies, different engines, different, let's say, backend services. So it usually happens, the problems usually happens there.
Yeah. I'm trying to find my reInvent that, because I did one talk kind of like this at reInvent, and I have my flywheel. There you go. Pretty much the short answer to that, getting in the room. Absolutely getting in the room. So there is always a validation that must happen, right? Either way. So what I say here, flywheel, we at Amazon, we love our flywheels. All this represents is your typical process, or one that I've seen working for many customers. And you can start with the business capability because the business knows what it wants. But then the business needs to validate with security, needs to validate with DevOps and infrastructure as code if that is happening. And because if you only go to the devs, they may not have visibility of the fact that, well, you cannot actually split that stack. It's going to take a lot of time to split that deployment now. We were talking about versioning and how that affects existing templates. I mean, there's a lot to think about. So it's absolutely the short answer, get them in the room. But the offshoot of that is the technical requirements, which are identified by the various technical teams. And that absolutely must be part of the process. So the only difference is that you kind of flip. You go from technical requirement to validating with the business. And then now you kind of go back to the same old problem. This is where DDD tries to address it with ubiquitous language and all that, of trying to explain to the business, what do you mean? Because how do you explain DDoS attack to the business? Maybe they understand that these days, but they want to understand cross-site scripting. I don't know, you know? So how do you do this? Pretty much by saying, you may know at AWS, we have, at Amazon in general, we have our saying that security is job zero, right? So culturally, we understand that as a leadership principle, like security is job zero. It's not a leadership principle, it's derivative of that. So I think also the second part of the answer is culture. You have to, the business needs to understand that you don't want to be the next front page, you know, about security data breach, especially depending on your business. So you lose a lot of trust, you know, it's really hard. So if you make them understand that, I think they will involve in conversations and proactively even send them to you for validation.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Anybody else?
Second.
So I have a question around the event storming. So how it is different compared to design thinking?
DDD is very focused on business capability, right? Because it comes from a time when, like I mentioned, IT departments were very detached from the business departments. So DDD kind of starts from there, identify business capability. So the business will go, what do you want to do? Sell. And that is the most important thing. And it splits into core domains, supporting domains, and general domains. So the business will dictate that their core domain is selling. And that means, and I've seen this happening, very capitalistic, even if everything else goes down, as long as we're still selling, say subscriptions, and then they go on the system and nothing's working, that's fine because we're making money. So keep that going, right? So the business will dictate you things like this. So DDD starts from that point of view.
I was not talking about DDD, design thinking, event storming and the design thinking.
Oh, well, event storming leads to it. There's so much to event storming. They call it a workshop, right? A brainstorming workshop. And I mean, function decomposition microservices is just that community latched onto it, but it's not even what it's made for necessarily, right? It leads to it because once you identify all your events, you've identified the domains that you need. So order completed, you know, triggers this, triggers that, triggers that. Now you can actually see the spider web of things that are connected and identify the points that can be isolated or that belong together. So DDD arrives at that by using bounded context and more over-indexed terminology, whereas event storming is all about simple language. It's like, we know that once an order is completed, there are like 5 things connecting to it. What are we going to do about it? And the business could make a decision, say, you know what? Maybe we don't need to send an email every time an order completed for the customer. That's okay with us. Our customers wouldn't mind that. So this is how he arrives at design. From there, the technical team go, okay, so we're going to have an order service. And the order service is going to be called every time there is an order completed event. So it could lead to event driven, right? Or it could just be that that event is simply another service calling that one synchronously. Don't recommend that, but maybe a queue or whatever, right? So that's how it leads to it. Yeah.
Okay, 1 second. 1 second. I just first here and all right.
Okay, so you show us for a moment the decomposition for .NET applications. This graph visualizer, etc. Is there a planned one for other languages, or you cannot say?
I cannot say.
So,
but if there is demand, I know it's a cop-out answer, but it's not really. If there is demand, then it's prioritized.
Okay, maybe so. Maybe other question: do you know other tools which does something like that?
Yeah, and actually, there's one that I love. It's not AWS. They're called vfunction. Amazing tool. I mean, all of them. And actually, they do like, I mean, it's not particular. It's not specific AWS. You know, it's for everything. They analyze your code base. It does the bubbles thing that a lot of people are using now. They do everything: Python, JavaScript, Node. I think they even do JavaScript frameworks in general, Next.js and all that. .NET, whatever you want. They support a lot of the languages. We actually did some content together with Refactor Spaces team. So, you know, there is a synergy, because once you use that, you can use Refactor Space to start strangling. They don't do that bit, but they do everything else to do with your decomposition and blah, blah, blah. Like I can say AWS Microservices, .NET Extract or something. Yeah. vfunction. vfunction. Yeah, altogether. Yeah.
Just more of like a question, maybe a year from now, I don't know. But do you think that, you know, you have, for example, AWS AppSync, right? And this whole new moving to new GraphQL.
My man, I love GraphQL.
So do you think that's gonna solve some of the issues, especially around communication about, you know, the consumers of said API and the backend services? And how do you think, you know, even this presentation would change, you know, in case you shifted to even talk about AppSync, for example?
A lot. And I'm scared that you're like breached into my computer or something. I am working on a talk for next year that translates what does it mean with GraphQL in the picture now to do all this. Because even this triangulation, when you do on the operation level, it's very REST oriented because it relies on HTTP verbs. So for example, get customer details that I was showing you, you can intercept on the get. So any get calls go to the microservice. Anything else go to my monolith. So GraphQL, you won't have that. So how can you actually strangle with GraphQL? I literally just published an article saying 4 reasons why GraphQL is the future. That's how opinionated I am about it. Ruffle a few feathers, but I like doing that. So I am a huge believer in GraphQL. You know, Facebook, Meta did an incredible job at that technology. Like React, to be honest, it really is very complementary. And for those who haven't heard, this is a technology that Facebook at the time created. 2015, they open sourced it and gave it to the open source community, and now it's part of the Linux Foundation, GraphQL Foundation. So nothing to do with Facebook anymore. And it's pretty much a completely alternative way of you doing API design and microservices by consequence. So a lot of this stuff may actually not be challenges with GraphQL. One of the main challenges with GraphQL, just to shortcut an answer there, is caching. A lot of people talk about caching. Kind of like the same narrative I talked about the microservices complexity. 10 years ago, that would have been true. Now you got a lot of tools and strategies and things to help you with that. GraphQL, same thing. Even though it's only 5 years old, the momentum it has gathered, it's incredible, right? And I've seen AppSync use that scale. Like, there are many big customers that shout about it anyway publicly. It's, for me, gonna change. Like, it's the next thing that it's coming up, not that slowly, but people are still hearing about it. So yeah, 2023, I'll answer that question in more detail.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, cool.
I had a quick one about your recommendation. If you were about to be a DevOps in a startup, what kind of composition out of those decomposition methods, strategies would you recommend?
To be honest,
and why is it even a thing that separating every single part, every single function into a different pipeline, into different repositories?
I would say it depends on the business. In terms of code repository, I'll say yes, because you're not going to see the need until you need it. And then I go, oh God, now we need to unpick all of this. So why do tomorrow what you can do today is what I say. I did have many startups in the past. And my approach, I relied on Uncle Bob to begin with, because I think common sense goes a long way. And they're not just common sense. I mean, single responsibility, you know, and common closure, as I mentioned there, for me, there are such simple rules that really can guide, you know, you to do that decomposition on a greenfield project, right? Because if it's a startup and it's just starting up, it's a greenfield, hopefully, unless you're in the business of migrating things, digital transformation, whatnot. But I will pick that a mix. I will pick a mix of the event storming technique, but not the full thing. And like I said, well, this is just my thing, right? Nobody's saying this. This is just my thing. Thinking that those code patterns that Robert C. Martin put out there can apply to decomposition if you know it well. And you have a guide, you know, a good lead dev or chief architect that is making sure the conversations are following within those guidelines. So that's what I'll pick. I'll just do single responsibility, common closure, plus a little bit of event storming, because everybody loves Post-its. So that's what I would do.
Okay, thank you very much. Little shout out for our guest.
Thank you. Chink.
All right. Shimon, come on in. We need to do the, you know, like how you call it? You know, like magic. Christmas time.
Should I stop
like some
sharing?
Magic.
Should I stop sharing?
You can stop sharing. You can go for it how you want.
There you go.
All right, guys. So the last meeting of this year, Christmas are coming. We have presents under the Christmas tree. First of all, we'll give to the people who are the most active. Yeah. And it's not going to be surprised who will get it, right?
Yeah, so we have three gifts. So yeah, I will do the
honors.
Thanks. So I think.
Yeah, definitely. The man is sitting there all the time. You know, I might have the feeling, you know, that he's coming only for gifts, right? Like it's so simple, you know. It's just coming and asking questions. So come on in.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah. Come on! You will get this lovely backpack for our partner, Philip Morris.
And it's not empty. I can tell.
I think so.
I can tell.
I think so. Congratulations, man! Thank you for your questions.
Thanks for the questions.
It was a pleasure, sir. You are
in the back.
Sure. Yeah, in the back.
Yes.
You were sitting in the back, you know, like the cool kids in the bus. So. Well, you can go, but you can stay as well.
You have
right?
your bag.
So you have your bag, right? Thank you very much, and thank you for your questions that you
Thanks for the questions.
Give feedback instantly. So, and the last one, but not the least, Mart. What you thought? You know, you asked like 500 questions today. You know, I rarely hearing that you speaking so much. You know, like when I met you first time, you said like, "Hey." Now he used like an entire year of words. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Here's it. Okay, so, and as well, we're giving some vouchers. Hopefully, I will read it.
It's not the end of giving
it's not the end of
gifts.
the giveaway, all right? So
Christmas
it's Christmas time. So I feel like KP. So I will read the first part of the email, you know, GDPR part. So KP at, right? So this person get the first voucher. Anna Grabos doesn't well. GDPR well, and projects at. So we will send on those emails vouchers, and hopefully you will use them. Remember, we're tracking if you redeem them. Just side note, right? So I hope it will help you to run some labs and learn AWS a little bit more. And
they are basically AWS credits that you can.
So they are not Amazon credits, okay? So you will not buy stuff for Christmas for them, because we get some kind of that comments that I get my PlayStation and you give me $100 and now I cannot redeem that. It's like, come on, you know, it's for AWS, buddy. So
if you use Bitcoin, then probably I didn't say anything.
So guys, thank you very much for today's meeting. We will have for sure more meetings next year, but this year I wish to give, if somebody's going for it, you know, Merry Christmas and for sure Happy New Year. And see you next year, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. See you next year.